Out. Sabby's back. All right. Do 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 do. Everybody, rock your body. Everybody, rock your body right. Sabby's back. All right.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right, guys, welcome back. It's been a hot minute, right? Like I was on vacation, so you guys haven't seen me for a while. I wasn't here Friday, I wasn't here Sunday, but I am back. And apparently while I was gone, there have been big news stories. A lot of things have happened. So I'm excited to be back. I had a great trip. Went up to Vermont, hung out with some friends there. And I went to the Vermont Brew Fest, which was awesome, by the way. I usually go every year and then took a break when the pandemic started because they weren't doing it and they had to get things all reorganized again. So it was nice to go back to that and try some really great brews. The best beers I think that I had there were from the Canadian breweries, believe it or not, like the ones from Montreal. There was one from Quebec as well. Like they were the best ones, I think. But great time, great time. But anywho, welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. So yes, it does feel really great to be back. I'm going to go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover tonight, so tonight's show will probably be a little bit longer than usual. So shout out to Will O. While I will say it's still too early to tell, there will need to be an extremely major shakeup for DeSantis to actually have a chance among other issues. DeSantis is about as charismatic as Hillary. I totally hear you there. We're going to get into that story. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and take that poll. Do you think that Ron DeSantis could beat Donald Trump? And that is in reference to the story we're going to cover tonight with Russell Brand and Ron DeSantis. Shout out to Nick says North Korea U.S. soldier story. I have not heard about that. I will look into that. Shout out to Lawrence, who is a Sabby member, says nice Sabby appearance on Rising. Thank you so much. Yes, I'll send that out to you guys in the newsletter. I didn't have a chance to do that today because this is actually my third show today. I did Rising this morning, and then I interviewed Tara Reid. We recorded that and then did it as a premiere. You know, Tara's on a different time zone, so but yeah, definitely check that out. But I'll send it out to you guys in the newsletter. Shout out to Serena, says, greetings, comrades. If DeSatan wins without something happening to Trump, I will eat my left shoe. Everyone sees how he flip-flops on issues depending on what Trump says that land with the people. What's going on, Gup? Says peace, love, and hugs, I think. There's a hug emoji. Shout out to Dabby Dabs. What's up, Sabby fam? Don't forget to show the like button some love. That's right, guys. Go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algo. Greetings, Hannah says, went through Sabby withdrawal. Glad you're back. I'm glad to be back, too. Shout out to the JD Club. Oh no, grease fires are super hard to put out. I know. It's funny. Like my husband actually pointed that out before I went live. He said, if you look at the thumbnail, you're just reading it and you just say grease fires, it sounds like actual grease fire. So interesting. What's up? Lorez says, supper, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam. Smash the like. No, he won't. Trump is still very popular. Even more West and DNC pawns. Ha ha ha. What's going on, Tori? Since fire and love. Shout out to Samuel says RFK Jr. merch. I don't know. I'm sure he probably does have merch somewhere. I don't know. Greetings. Lucy says good afternoon. Shout out to Bryce says sup, Sabby. Hopefully you enjoyed your trip. Afternoon, everyone. I did. I had so much fun. Shout out to Corey, who's a Sabby member, says welcome back, Sabby crew. Shout out to Kill Your Egorgers. Hello, Sabby fam. Greetings, New Sheep says yas. Shout out to Please Understand. Sabby, I was just watching you on Rising right now. Doobie hype. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Greetings, Rick says, hey, y'all. Shout out to Night Gazer. Hello, Sabby. Welcome back. Hi, chat. Shout out to Gamer says, hello to Bryce. Greetings, Desert Mantis. I'm not sure DeSantis will beat Trump. Honest, I'm not sure. Just keeping it real. We appreciate that. What's going on? Jonathan says, hey, Sabby, welcome back. Thank you so much. Greetings. Songs for the People, who's a Sabby member, says, yay, Sabby. Shout out to Mike, says, hi, Sabby. Was arguing with a guy who was smearing West on Twitter today, and you screenshotted my profile, circled Green Party, and said I may be an op. I did. That was you. I didn't realize that was you. I did. Sorry, Mikey. I'm really bitter on Twitter. And didn't mean to rhyme, or X, whatever we're calling it now. I sure did. I thought that was op-like behavior. Shout out to Fizbo, says, keep doing that, Sabrina. You're more beautiful now. Oh, thank you. Mikey says, not mad at you anything. I love you and your channel, but I've always been confused. Can you talk about ops, and should we not use that hashtag? I don't want to come off that way. Yeah, some of the accounts on Twitter that are, there's some suspect accounts right now on Twitter, Mikey, where anytime someone even mentions Cornel West, here they come in, and they're usually very similar in the sense that you check their bio, their Twitter bio, and it's like kind of suspect. So sorry, Mikey. I am sorry. My bad. Shout out to Old Man Barker, says, buddies. Greetings, Indie Left, says Sabby. Shout out to Lusta Silk. Hello, everyone. That's an interesting name. Shout out to Venti Cafe, says, hey, Sabby. Greetings, Eric, who's a Sabby member, says, I voted for the DeSantis option in the poll just because the unexpected always seems to happen. That's an interesting point. Shout out to Cheryl, says, Trump is a cult. Greetings, just me, says, love from Toronto. And I love Toronto. One of my favorite places to visit is Toronto. And shout out to Dr. Nick, says, sweet, made it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to those of you who are Sabby patrons. You're out here doing the darn thing. I really do appreciate all of your support. So thank you very much. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies. That they tend to be a pretty meaty bunch there. And of course, there's also the members. You can see all of their names here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Mikey Grio, or Mikey Gyro? Mikey Gyro. Mike Gyro. Emma Beveridge, Frank Regard, Roger Meadows, who you guys I think are very familiar with, and Kristen Rose. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate all of your support. So let's go ahead and get started and dive into our stories tonight. I think we have a lot to discuss, so sit tight and grab a beverage and hang out with me a little bit. Well, all righty then. Tonight, we are discussing Russell Brand versus Ron DeSantis. And the subject we are going to focus on tonight from that interview is whether or not Ron DeSantis can beat Donald Trump. I'm going to show you what he had to say, and I'm going to give my own opinion here. So we're going to get into a little bit of that interview. I'm also going to discuss RFK Jr. names. Oh, who pissed off RFK Jr.? You see, he does not look happy in that picture, and he has gone so far to finally name names. And we're going to get into that. I'm also going to discuss Joe Biden. This is huge news coming from the House, coming from Kevin McCarthy. Does Joe Biden have something to be concerned about in reference to his business dealings in Ukraine? We're going to get into that. I'm also going to discuss Cornel West and the DNC PAWNS. And there you'll see is a picture there of Simone Sanders. We're going to get into that story. Of course, you know, Simone is there to hold the DNC to power and to defend the DNC. So we'll get into that discussion. She's not alone. There's others. And last but not least, Greece fires. Now, there is something huge happening in Greece. I don't know if a lot of people have heard about this just yet, but I think we do need to be concerned. And I do want to go ahead and dive into that particular issue, because I think that more people need to talk about this. So let's get into that story. Believe it or not, there are currently wildfires in Greece. That's right. Now, I don't know if you have heard, but the past 20, probably like 21 days now, this summer, we have had record temperatures across the world, not just the United States, and Greece is not immune. I want to make the connection here in reference to the fires that are happening in Greece and also Greece's economy, which was actually on the up, but now there are more concerns. So I want to go ahead and get started with this clip here. This should be a warning to all of you, whether you live in Greece or not. Wildfires here in Greece.
Now, wildfires in Greece have turned into a catastrophic calamity. Raging flames are scorching Rhode Island, and approximately 19,000 have been moved overnight, most of them tourists. Rhode Island, it's a popular destination among British tourists. Holidaymakers say that they had to walk for miles in the searing heat to reach safety. Now, wildfire broke out at a UNESCO-protected geopark in Greece's Peloponnese region. Videos showed large clouds of smoke and flames spreading across the landscape.
So you can see those there. Now, and here's more footage. We'll get into this as well. Now, some of you may be wondering, like, what on earth could have caused this? You know, California has wildfires every year, right? Because California is very dry. It's that dry heat. It's a different type of heat than we have here on the East Coast. During the summer here, we tend to have higher humidity. California, on the other hand, has lower humidity. And so you have that combined with the heat and the wind. You have your wildfires. So that's why California is more known to have them. This is the first time I've heard of Greece actually having wild fires. But again, this is contributed to the rising temperature increases that we have had over the past couple of weeks this summer. And so we need to pay attention to what's happening in Greece, even if we're not experiencing this where we live, because it could happen to you as well. 19,000 people have been moved due to the Greece wildfire.
The drone footage here you can see, it shows the extent of the damage that the fires have caused. Tourists witnessed the skies turning gray with a yellowish hue due to the massive amounts of smoke. This also broke the record for the biggest ever fire evacuation in Greece. Tourists being evacuated off the Greek island of Rhodes were forced to sleep on airport floors while waiting for flights out. One of the British tourists who arrived in Manchester after fleeing the wildfires said that the moon was red. Listen in.
On our way back from the hotel, you could literally just see a whole cloud of smoke. It was horrible. We got really lucky because we were in Lindos the day before, but we were talking to people after, literally 2 hours after we left, they were covered in ash, just sat on their own like balconies, looking over at the pool. They'd be covered in ash. And like the moon was like red and everything. It was horrible.
The relentless fire gutted cars, left charred corpses of animals on the roadside. One of the evacuees compared the aftermath of the wildfire to a war zone. High-speed winds are fanning the fires. This has led to the blaze spreading uncontrollably on the 3 fronts across the island.
So this is another problem that will tend to happen with wildfires. If you have high speed wind, then that just actually contributes to it and can cause the wildfires to spread. I mean, we can't really control the wind, right? So it's going to be very difficult for firefighters to try to put those wildfires out because they're also battling the wind that's coming towards those fires as well. Let's continue on. Whew. You see, it says biggest ever fire evacuation in Greece. So this is huge. Now, Greece is a pretty popular tourist destination too, by the way.
Now, as per reports, the fire also spread to Corfu, another popular Greek island. Officials were forced to issue evacuation order after the wildfires began to spread across the region.
And you can see the sky there. So imagine if you live there, like look at all the buildings here. Imagine if you're living there, you know, you're breathing in this air. So that's not healthy for you, obviously, right?
WION is now available in...
Okay, so I want to get into another clip here that goes into a little bit more detail. Actually, let's show this article first in reference to the hottest days. So the past 20 days have been the hottest ever recorded. So I want to dive into this a little bit from the World Socialist website. Listen to this. Saturday, now this article was released July 23rd, so or 2 days after, but Saturday marked the 20th consecutive day of the hottest temperatures recorded in human history. Since July 3rd, the average global temperature, the temperature over the Earth's entire surface, averaged over 24 hours, has remained above the previous high of 16.92 degrees Celsius. Now, this is recorded in August 2016. According to the preliminary data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, several regional temperature records have been set concurrently. Greece, Italy, and Spain have seen new record high temperatures of 45 degrees Celsius, which is 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperatures in Tunis, the capital of Tunisia, have reached 49 degrees Celsius, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and Algeria has witnessed temperatures of 51 degrees Celsius, just under 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Much of the Mediterranean region is 5 degrees Celsius, 9 Fahrenheit above normal. And then we go into the aspect here when people start to talk about the climate. That's changing. That's just rapidly changing around us. You know, this is a sign. We've been saying this before. Scientists have been talking about this for years, that the earth is warming up. So this is not just a one-off. Oh, they just had a hot summer. We've been seeing these temperatures increase over time. In the U.S., high temperatures in Phoenix, Arizona have stayed above 43 degrees Celsius, 110 degrees Fahrenheit for 21 days, and above 32 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit for the past 70 days. Now, I know some of you may think, well, Arizona is hot during the summer. That's not unusual. That is true. But This, however, is unusual. So we got to think about people that are living in these desert climates. On parts of the U.S.-Mexico border where thousands of migrants are seeking refuge in the U.S. each day, temperatures have soared to more than 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. At least 167 Mexicans have died as a result of the heat wave in Mexico, and an unknown number of refugees have been left to die in the scorching desert as they are refused entry into the U.S. by customs and immigration authorities. And you can see there's a digital billboard here in Phoenix, Arizona, saying 109 degrees. So they're telling you the temperature. I would imagine at that type of heat, you probably wouldn't be able to touch certain parts of your car if you're getting into the car. I remember living in South Carolina, and some of the times during the summer when we had like 100-degree heat day, just touching the car door handle, it like burns your hand just to touch it because it's been in the sun and it's so like scorching hot. If you have leather seats, good luck. Good luck. Nobody likes to sit on hot leather seats during the summer. That is not fun. Let's go on a little bit here. The two major factors of the current global heat wave are the onset of El Niño, a semi-regular pattern that warms the Pacific Sea, and the formation of 4 high-pressure regions known as heat domes, which simultaneously trap heat over a region and prevent cooler weather from moving in. The simultaneous heat waves across the world are a direct result of global warming. And notice they brought back the word global warming. When I was a kid, that's what it was called. They used to call it global warming. They used to talk about it on Earth Day. We had a little Earth Day t-shirts and all that jazz. And then somewhere along the way, they decided to, let's refer to this as climate change. I guess because it doesn't sound as bad, but the Earth really is warming. The uncontrolled release of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, into Earth's atmosphere by capitalist industry traps more and more energy from the sun, increasing temperatures globally and causing weather extremes regionally, from longer and more intense heat waves, wildfires, and droughts to more powerful hurricanes, and in a contradictory fashion to more frigid polar vortexes and torrential flooding. Now, when I was on vacation, one night in the hotel room, guess what movie came on? I tweeted about this. The Day After Tomorrow. Haven't seen that movie in a long time, but that movie just happened to come on. And I was watching that movie again, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, yeah, obviously there are exaggerations in that movie. It is Hollywood. They are there to entertain. Let's just be real. But what really is frustrating is when people just pretend it's not happening. Just pretend that the world isn't getting warmer. And we have all the signs right in front of us. You can see it. People experiencing shorter winters than usual. Longer summers, hotter summers. People have to pay attention to these things. And I want to talk about what's happening in Asia as well to show you this is a global issue. The ongoing heat wave in South Asia that peaked in April and May serves as an example of the stark dangers of climate change. In the past, the severe heat that caused temperatures to reach above 50 degrees Celsius, 120 degrees Fahrenheit in Thailand, and which killed 13 people in a single day in India, would have been characterized as a once in 200 years event. Now, such events are 30 times more likely to occur each year as they were before global temperatures begin to rise. And if temperatures continue to rise as they have, such heat waves could occur in South Asia once every 2 years. Heat waves are among the deadliest extreme weather events. Tens of thousands of people worldwide die every year from dehydration and heat stroke. Extreme humidity can prevent heat from properly radiating, and both are especially deadly to those who work in construction, agriculture, and other essential outdoor jobs, where employers often do not provide adequate breaks, shade, and water, all of which would eat into their profits. although these are absolutely vital for workers to stave off the many dangers caused by working in high temperatures. Let's talk about this for a second. That's exactly who I usually think of. The people who have jobs where they have to work outside. Like if you're a construction worker, that's your job. You have to work outside. You have to drink plenty of water, consume plenty of water, because you can easily get dehydrated. They used to give us warnings about this when we did have like a heat wave. When I lived down south, they used to say, make sure you're drinking plenty of water and don't go outside between noon and 3 p.m. That's what they used to tell us, right? But if your job is outside, how can you avoid going outside from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.? Now, I want to go into this a little bit further in reference to the temperatures, because ABC News actually covered this as well. So let's go ahead and dive in here. We're talking about Greece, the wildfires, and the extreme temperatures.
World Meteorological Organization is warning Europeans they are at increased risk of death from the excessive heat. In Greece, the extreme temperatures are fueling wildfires and forcing the evacuation of towns across the country. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore is in Athens with the latest.
Firefighters battling relentless flames in the extreme heat across parts of Greece. One fire roaring through this community outside Athens. A firefighter telling us the changing winds are making these fires hard to stop. God help us, he said. Authorities forced to evacuate more people from their homes as the fire grew in size and strength. Now on high alert as a new heat wave is expected over the weekend and into next week. Some areas could see temperatures of nearly 120 degrees Fahrenheit. From the air to the ground, the fight is on. France and Italy sending planes. And nearly 800 firefighters from Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and other countries are now involved, with scorching summer heat setting in across Europe. In Italy, residents and tourists alike cooling down in a historic fountain amid the heat. And in Spain, people flocking to the sea to escape the heat wave.
And Marcus Moore is live now from Athens with more on this. Marcus, have authorities been able to give a time frame on when they'll be able to actually get these fires out?
Diane, at this point, no. There's no specific time frame. We know that they have been able to make some progress, however, in knocking down a number of these fires that have been popping up. And the real problem is the weather conditions that they expect to get worse in the next couple of days. It is incredibly hot right now, temperatures up towards 100 degrees, and they've been that way for several days now. In fact, so much so it may break a record. You also have dry air and then on occasion the winds, and that is helping to fuel and fan the flames here. And Diane, what they are most concerned about is the fact that with these conditions, it doesn't take much for another fire or number of fires to start.
The other thing I want to add, too, for people who would suggest to stay indoors to escape the heat, not just the temperature, the weather heat, but also the heat coming from the wildfires as well. Not everyone has air conditioning. This is a problem across the board. Air conditioning in some states in this country are mandatory, not in all. I mean, when I moved to Massachusetts, like I was kind of surprised, like most of the buildings did not have air conditioning, especially if you're working in some of those older schools where they didn't have air conditioning. So just keep that in mind. Not everyone has it. I think everyone should have it, and I think everyone should have heat, but that's not always the case. So just keep that in mind.
Now, what are European authorities telling people to do to protect themselves from this extreme heat?
Well, I mean, it's the usual information. Wear the proper clothing, drink plenty of water, hydrate. That is the word. But also to stay indoors if you can. And we just found out, Diane, for the first time ever that we are aware of, the Acropolis, it is closed today. It's just off in the distance behind us, this iconic structure that brings tens of thousands of tourists every year. They already closed the hours or limited the hours to be during cooler parts of the day, but we've just learned that it will remain closed because it is so hot. So authorities trying to keep people safe in whatever way they can.
Wow, Marcus Moore in Athens, thank you.
All right, so now, I want to pivot a little bit. We're still on Greece, but I want to pivot a little bit in reference to Greece's economy. For those who are not aware, for a while, Greece had issues with their economy. Their economy was struggling. I think we talked about this maybe like a year and a half ago, but their economy actually has been on the up. but there's still problems. And I want this all to be connected here. I want you to connect it. You have the wildfires that they're trying to battle. You have the extreme heat temperatures that they're trying to deal with as well. And then you also have this issue with their economy. And I want to get into this particular clip here that says Greek economic background. Let's see what happened to Greece.
For it yet.
It's not an easy place, and we should not pass the message that this is an easy place to do business. It has become better in the last years, certainly. We are competitive here. We could be more competitive. We can be more flexible, but still there is a lot of work to be done. And we stay here because we believe that we can change Greece and put it in another trajectory for us and our kids.
Greece's main advantage is its highly educated workforce, but nearly 10% of it has left for better jobs elsewhere. During the economic crisis a decade ago, many of Greece's top companies and employees fled. 4 years ago, the ruling New Democracy Conservatives promised to bring them back. They cut corporate tax by 7 points and brought Greek government bonds back to the brink of investment-grade status to lower the country's borrowing costs. Greece enjoyed 5.5% growth last year, well above the European average of 3.5%, and is slated to outperform Europe this year and next. But that tide hasn't lifted all boats. The New Democracy Party tried to nurture an economy of scale. It offered tax breaks for mergers and halved income tax for farmers in cooperatives. But inflation has swamped the benefits.
So you see, here is a country whose economy was struggling, but their economy was able to get back up on the up, grew 5% within the past year, but inflation. So you see, it's not just us being affected by this. We've talked multiple times about how inflation has affected the UK, how it's affected Germany. And so this is like a step back for them. And on top of that, now they have to deal with the fires. Let's continue.
There's been a doubling or tripling of expenses on products farmers buy, while the value of his produce has only gone up about 50%. Our cooperative runs a cotton mill whose electricity bill used to be 80,000 euros a year. In the past 2 years, it's gone up to 200,000 and 300,000 respectively.
Small enterprises and self-employed people find it hard to stay in business. They say they could better weather inflation if they weren't also battling a bureaucratic and politicized state. Their vote on Sunday will largely be a vote to change that culture.
So small businesses are struggling. Why? I mean, we have the same problem here in the United States, right? Small businesses struggling. If you want to see the full video, because there's a beginning part I did not play because of YouTube. Greek economic background, ruling New Democracy Party in a tough fight. So if you want to check that out, that's on Al Jazeera. But we have to pay attention to what's happening globally and not just in the United States. What's happening to Greece can happen to other countries as well. And before you know it, we're having the same issues here. But I think the wildfires, how many this summer? The wildfires in Canada, some of them are still continuing. When I was up in Vermont over the weekend, you know, there's flooding in Vermont for days. Like, not like it rained hard one day and there's a little bit of water. No, there were businesses who were actually underwater. One of my favorite businesses, Prohibition Pig, that I love to go to, which is in Waterbury, Vermont, temporarily closed because they're underwater. We have to pay attention to what's happening around us. But that's wildfires in Greece. And if those of you are not aware, Greece does have a lot of tourism. So if your economy or part of your economy depends on tourism, what do you do now when they had to kick the tourists out because of the wildfires? So that's just something to think about. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algo. Thank you very much. And I'll go ahead and shout out a couple of comments here. The JD Club says, have you invited RFK Jr. on? I invited RFK Jr. on the week he announced that he was running. So that goes all the way back to, I believe that was April. Yeah. Bryce says, just take a blow dryer to your face. That's the West, including Vegas. Yikes. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific time, congressional hearing on UFOs. You should cover it. I'm not live on Wednesdays, but I can check it out. And if I get to check it out in time, I can cover it on Thursday. Thank you for the super chat, Half Dahlia. Wildfires happen every summer in Greece. The heat wave was historically long lasting, though. Interesting. Thank you for the super chat, Mary. I work as a postal carrier, and we are having a heat dump this week. Plus, the smoke from the Canadian fires is affecting us too. Yeah, and I think some of you guys may have seen the pictures or the video footage from New York City. This was a couple weeks ago in reference to the Canadian fires, where the sky was like kind of yellow. It kind of looked like something out of Mad Max in the Thunderdome or something like that. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. Okay. We're going to get into our next story here about Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden is not looking too good right now. There are the polling numbers. There are his mishaps with his speeches or just walking across the stage. He has a number of challengers for the presidency for 2024. But to make matters worse for Joe Biden, it appears that the House may be moving forward with impeachment. Now, this is in reference to those business dealings that Joe Biden had in Ukraine. Kevin McCarthy is not playing around. And I want to go ahead and get into this clip first. Now, Simon Etaba, he's a journalist, a White House journalist. You've seen this guy a lot. He was the one that complained he was being censored by the press secretary. So he actually shared this. It says, Speaker McCarthy says the United States House of Representatives is getting ready to impeach Joe Biden. Here it goes, folks.
That they bribed the Bidens, okay? This was given to the FBI. When Bill Barr finally found out about it, he sent it to his office in Philadelphia. They actually said that this was very credible. The FBI kept this from the IRS individuals for them ever to see it. So not only do they claim that they were bribed, we now find information that 16 out of 17 payments from Romania were provided to the Biden shell companies while he was vice president. When President Biden was running for office,
let's just pause there and go back, because this piece right here, I think, is very important, because originally when we discussed this, we talked about this, about his business dealings in Ukraine. We didn't go as far back as his vice presidency. So now we're hearing information that goes all the way back to when Joe Biden was vice president under the Obama administration. So this goes back many years. Let's hear this again.
The Bidens, okay? This was given to the FBI. When Bill Barr finally found out about it, he sent it to his office in Philadelphia. They actually said that this was very credible. The FBI kept this from the IRS individuals for them ever to see it. So not only do they claim that they were bribed, we now find information that 16 out of 17 payments from Romania were provided to the Biden shell companies while he was vice president. When President Biden was running for office, he told the American public that he's never talked about business. He said his family has never received $1 from China, which we now prove is not true.
Whoa. Okay. Remember, we talked about this before, that Joe Biden may have been involved in some type of bribe. The fact that Kevin McCarthy is saying here that the FBI kept this information from the IRS is very telling, while at the same time, the IRS is trying to attempt to prosecute someone like Matt Taibbi just for doing his job of being a journalist. Matt Taibbi doesn't have business dealings in Ukraine. Do you see what's happening here? You see how the FBI, which the FBI director did testify in front of Congress. You see how the FBI was trying to protect and run cover for Joe Biden. Now, this goes all the way back to when Joe Biden was vice president. So either they were trying to protect him back then because he was vice president, or because they knew there was a possibility that he would run for president. Why is the FBI protecting political officials? Isn't their job to go after domestic terrorists? Shouldn't they be out trying to catch I don't know, a serial killer somewhere. But this is what they're doing, protecting people like Joe Biden. So if you did not see the interview I did with Tara Reid earlier this afternoon, you need to watch that interview, because one of the things that Tara explains is how far someone like Joe Biden or someone like the Clintons are connected with government agencies and very powerful people that protect them at all costs, regardless of what they do. This should concern all of you. I don't care if you're a Democrat or not. It should be very concerning to you that here we are right now, where we have this war between Russia and Ukraine, where if we go back to the beginning, where they tried to have some type of a negotiation, but that was shot down, where we have NATO, which has escalated this war. Here we have all of that. We have a president who is continuing to unequivocally send more money to Ukraine to continue and prolong this war. And all along, he had business dealings in Ukraine. I call that a little bit suspect. Let's go on. Let's hear what else he's got to say.
Now have some of the most credible whistleblowers, these 10-year IRS agents who have come forward, said that the Biden family has been treated differently, that what Weiss has told us is different than what Garland and Weiss has told the public. And you're sitting here today where now you have found millions of foreign money, just what the 1023 alleges they did to Biden's family. Now we found that it has funneled through shell companies. If you're sitting in our position today, we would know none of this if Republicans had not taken the majority. We've only followed where the information has taken us. But Hannity, this is right.
Now, I am not a Republican, but I think Kevin McCarthy is correct there. I believe that if the Democrats would have held the House, this wouldn't even happen right now. This investigation into Joe Biden's dealings, his business dealings, would not have happened. Now, if the president was Donald Trump, that would probably be a different story. They probably would investigate business dealings of the president at that point in time. But think about that for a second. You wouldn't even know about this. Maybe you would have heard about it from an investigative journalist, maybe someone like Max Blumenthal or Aaron. Maybe they would have been able to uncover something like this in the gray zone, but they tend to focus more so on more heavily on foreign policy. But do you see where we're getting at here? It shouldn't even take this. It shouldn't even take having another party in power in the House to reveal corruption of the U.S. president. But this is what happens. The same thing happened under Donald Trump. This is the problem with partisan politics. There should be justice regardless which party has control over the House. But that's not the way that this works.
To the level of impeachment inquiry, which provides Congress the strongest power to get the rest of the knowledge and information needed. Because this president has also used something we have not seen since Richard Nixon, used the weaponization of government to benefit his family and deny Congress the ability to have the oversight.
When you have just been compared to Richard Nixon. Oh my God. Yikes. Joe Biden doing everything that he can to protect his family. And I've said this thing before about Hunter Biden and this laptop, which when Judge Joe Brown was here, he said there's multiple laptops, not just one. But with Hunter Biden and this laptop, again, Joe Biden protecting his family. You know, why would the FBI, why would these government agencies reach out to Twitter executives and tell them to suppress that laptop story about Hunter Biden? Why? Who nudged them? Who gave them the push and said, oh, got to cover that up? They're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. And it's interesting, the people who are the most corrupt, the people who are the most vicious, they're the ones who end up in power. You see how this works? The people doing the right thing, the people who are abiding by all the rules and the laws, those people don't usually end up in power. It's the people who are corrupt.
If we are talking about millions of dollars coming from our top geopolitical foes, and that the Biden family has been corrupted and took in all of this money, and he was complicit in that, Wouldn't that mean that we have a criminal enterprise as president of the United States that had to be on every level compromised by countries that are not particularly fond of us?
Well, it's interesting that the Biden family runs, if they say, a company but never had an office and shell companies to be able to pay through. But if they really ran it for foreign countries, why didn't you get money from France, from Germany, from UK? Why does it have to be from China, Romania, in these countries that have real challenges and had...
And as much as Joe Biden fearmongers about China, he didn't have any problem taking their money, though. You see how that works? He didn't have any problem taking their money.
From UK. Why does it have to be from China, Romania, in these countries that have real challenges and had problems going through? I believe we will follow this all the way to the end, and this is going to rise to an impeachment inquiry the way the Constitution tells us to do this, and we have to get the answers to these questions.
And here we are heading into the 2024 presidential election. You know, karma is an interesting thing. Remember when the Democrats had majority of the House and they tried to impeach Donald Trump? Probably didn't expect this to happen, but this is karma. This is karma. Now, the New York Post actually posted about this as well. GOPers demand Biden impeachment after Hunter's ex-business partner reveals alleged calls, must be held accountable. So let's listen to this. Hunter's buddy here spilled the beans. Some Republicans on Monday demanded House Speaker Kevin McCarthy begin the process to impeach President Biden after the Post revealed a key witness saying first son Hunter Biden frequently put his father on the phone with foreign business associates. So if that is the case, that makes Joe Biden complicit. If that is true, for all the people who have come in to defend Joe Biden, they're all over social media, that have come in to defend Joe Biden, and they've made this claim that, well, you can't blame Joe Biden for his son's mistakes. Okay. But if this is true, and Joe Biden was on these phone calls with foreign business associates, now you can blame Joe Biden. You see how that works? Let's continue. One of Hunter Biden's closest partners, Devin Archer, is expected to describe the alleged damning calls involving the president at an upcoming hearing of the House Oversight Committee. Oh, man. Archer's explosive anticipated testimony comes on the heels of last week's release of an FBI informant file that said Hunter and then Vice President Joe Biden coerced a Ukrainian oligarch to pay $10 million in bribes to dodge a corruption probe. Boy, I tell you, House Republicans should initiate impeachment proceedings against President Biden. That's coming from Representative Jim Banks. Joe Biden was trading his personal influence to enrich himself and his family and must be held accountable for selling out America. A source close to McCarthy said Kevin will never go all in on a former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi style sham impeachment. That's not what Kevin just said in the interview we just watched. Oh, no. But the evidence is piling up, and he's getting more bullyish on a Biden impeachment, a source said. And there's Hunter and Joe Biden there. As soon as there's clear, convincing evidence directly tying Biden to Hunter's shenanigans, the moderates will jump on board. There you go. We've been talking to them. Not looking good for Sleepy Joe. Representative Claudia Tenney tweeted in reaction to Archer looming testimony, Joe Biden committed crimes in plain sight. Yet, the Biden Department of Justice is covering up his corruption. It's time for impeachment. And to the people who consider the lesser of two evils, the people who continue to tell me just vote blue no matter who, evil is evil. I don't know how many times I can express that to people, but there is no lesser of two. It's like being sort of pregnant. It's like you're pregnant or you're not. So you can't do this. So for the people saying, well, yes, I like the fact that a third party person is running, and I like the fact that there are people running on progressive issues in the Democratic Party running against Joe Biden. But at the end of the day, if it ends up being between Biden and Trump, you got to vote for Biden. How many times have you heard people say that? What they leave out is if it ends up being between Biden and Trump, you should vote for the third party or independent candidate that's left in the race. They leave that part out because at the end of the day, their job is to keep you in the Democratic Party, not to get you out of it. You got to understand that. That's how this works. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Monday that the president stood by his blanket assertion that he never discussed international business dealings with his son. You mean just like Bill Clinton said, I never had sexual relations with that woman. Although the rep did not dispute the claim that Joe Biden was on speakerphone with his son's foreign associates. Of course not. I've been asked this question a million times. This answer is not going to change. The answer remains the same. The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add. And she knows this because of how? She wasn't the press secretary during this time, but her job is to lie and cover for the president. Archer's planned testimony fleshes out already significant evidence of Joe Biden's role in Hunter's dealings. A source with the Oversight Committee said Archer is set to sit for a transcribed interview Monday, July 31st. So mark your calendars, guys. There is evidence that Joe Biden met in person with Hunter's associates from China, Mexico, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. So Joe Biden can do business with China and Mexico and Russia, but he doesn't want them to do business with anybody else. Isn't this what this really is about? The anger and frustration that he has against countries like China and countries like Russia is business, is economics. He doesn't want them to succeed. He doesn't want them to surpass the United States economically. He doesn't want them to be able to stand on their own, but it's okay for him to do business with them. In addition to meeting with his American partners, and that Hunter complained in records on his abandoned laptop that he had to give half of his income to his dad. How old is Hunter Biden? Okay. Let's continue. Hunter also rode aboard Air Force Two on official trips to China in 2013 as he set up a state-backed investment fund called BHR Partners, whose incoming CEO, Jonathan Lee, met Vice President Biden in Beijing. So again, going back to his vice presidency, just FYI, guys. Hunter also flew the taxpayer-funded jet to Mexico in 2016 with an associate as he courted that nation's business elite, whom his father had hosted the preceding year at the official vice president's residence in Washington. Archer intends to say he was present for about 24 phone calls in which Hunter put his dad on speakerphone with foreign associates, including about half dozen instances in which Joe was specifically introduced to others. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if those phone calls, if any of them were recorded, Joe Biden's going to look really bad, considering the statement he gave that he was not involved. In an alleged December 4th, 2015 call, Hunter phoned his father from Dubai after Burisma owner Mikola and executive Vadman asked him to get his dad to show support for the firm when he visited Kyiv 3 days later, according to Archer. Whoo! Now, this is Devin Archer here in the picture. They better protect Devin before the 31st. I'm telling you, it's unclear if Archer, who met with VP Biden as he joined Burisma's board in early 2014 alongside Hunter, will provide additional context about the 10 million bribery allegation in which Joe Biden allegedly got paid to force out Ukrainian prosecutor general Viktor Shokin. All this money, $10 million. We've known that President Biden lied about not discussing Hunter's overseas business dealings. It certainly wouldn't surprise me to learn he was far more involved. That's coming from Senator Ron Johnson. I hope House investigators will ask Devin what he discussed with then VP Biden in the White House on April 16th, 2014, 5 days before Biden traveled to Ukraine and 6 days before Archer joined the board of Burisma. The dates of these events are not coincidences. The president has sought to laugh off the bribery allegation. Where's the money? But the Oversight Committee is investing the claim, as well as references on Hunter Biden's laptop to Burisma opening a Maltese bank account in 2016. Where's the money? He could have done what a lot of rich people do. They hide that money. Maybe he hid it in offshore accounts. There's ways to hide money. Like, where's the money? You think he would be dumb enough to just have it in an American bank account? No. 2 IRS agents testified last week to the House Oversight Committee that Joe Biden blocked tax fraud charges against his son and that prosecutors in Delaware thwarted standard investigative steps and prevented agents from analyzing the president's role in international income. So once again, another example of Joe Biden protecting his son. And here's the thing, and I got to bring the class issue into this for a second, because the rest of you, if you're working class, hell, even if you're middle class nowadays, or if you're poor, you don't have the type of resources and you don't have the network that Joe Biden has to protect your kids from something like this. If you get caught or your kids get caught, they're busted. They're held accountable. They have to deal with justice. But people who are rich, people who are wealthy, who are prominent figures, a lot of these politicians, and some of them are millionaires, these people have the resources and the network to get away with murder. Literally. That's why the Clintons don't get in trouble. That's why Bill Clinton, think about it. Bill Clinton, there was solid DNA evidence showing that he lied about not having the affair with Monica Lewinsky, who was an intern, by the way, in the White House, and he could get away with that and remain to be president? Bill and Hill, the Whitewater scandal. They were able to get away with it, throw the other partners under the bus, and walk away with their hands clean. Rich people have resources and they have the means to get out of these types of situations. Poor folk, working class folk, and even middle class folks do not. There is no fair justice system because money runs everything. And we'll read this part here. The latter incident occurred even though a threatening July 2017 text message from Hunter to a Chinese government-linked business allegedly directly implicated Joe Biden, preceding the transfer of roughly $5 million to Hunter Biden-linked bank accounts. And then, they were dumb enough to have linked accounts. We will see what will happen. I will tell you what I think. I do not believe that Joe Biden didn't know about Hunter Biden's business dealings. I think he knew. I think he was also involved. But we will see what will happen. Because the thing is, even if it does pass in the House, the question is, will it pass in the Senate? And that's what we're going to have to wait for to see. I don't think it will. I don't think it will pass in the Senate. But here we are. They're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. Thank you for the super sticker, Baza. Thank you for the super chat, Oz. What's up, Oz? Sabrina is a beacon of light that illuminates the path of integrity, and those who fearlessly speak truth to power embody the essence of courage and conviction. Oh, thank you. Sabby's coming for the liars. Sabby is real hope and change we need. Oh, thank you, Oz. It's not just me. There are a lot of other truth tellers like out there. But thank you so much for that. What's up, Hard Lens? Great work on the Hill, Sabby Sabs. Thank you so much. What's up, JB says rich people are the only people with freedom and liberty. That's right. That's right. Poor people go to jail. Rich people get good lawyers that are able to get them out of jail. Think about that. Sebastian says, remember, Joe Biden is the main architect of mass incarceration that imprisons men like Hunter Biden. There you go. But not his son. Oh, man, it's getting juicy out there. Oh, boy. And speaking of controversy. So we're moving on to our next story here. And this is about RFK Jr. So I don't know if you guys have been aware, but since we have covered his testimony in front of Congress about the criticism that has come his way and the attacks that he has received, calling him anti-Semitic, obviously we know that's not true in reference to RFK Jr. In fact, is the exact opposite. He's been very vocal about, his loyalty to Israel and et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about that. But RFK Jr. has decided to name some names. I guess he decided that, look, if I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me. He really went all out. We're going to go through that list where he calls out multiple politicians that are currently in office in reference to some of the dealings that they've had in the past when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict. So we're going to get into that. But first and foremost, I want to show a part of this interview that he had. And this is on, I think, Newsmax. Yes, this is on Newsmax, where, again, he is confronted about the criticisms that he's received from people in reference to, some of the conversations that he's had about the jab. We're not going to get into the details. You guys already know all that. Well, he's speaking out and he has some things to say. So let's get into that clip first. And then we're going to go through this list of names where he decides to fight back, taking off the gloves. Let's get into it. Shout out to K-Steady QB for this clip. And let's do the damn thing.
2024 Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joins me. Nice to see you.
Good to be back, Greta.
Okay. Anti-Semitism. It's a terrible thing. I've got family members who are Jewish, and it pains me immensely. I believe it exists, but there's not one bone in my body that thinks you're anti-Semitic. And I just want to tell you that. Not one bone in my body.
I appreciate that. And I said this under oath today because I'm so angry at those charges. In my entire life, I have never uttered a single anti-Semitic phrase, word, anything, or racist. And, because of my family and because I've spent a lot of time in Israel and I have an organization over there, my support for Israel is stronger than anybody in Capitol Hill. I'm the only one who's demanded that Biden retract the $2 billion payment that he's giving to Iran, which is, going to be used for genocidal purposes.
So he's right about the fact that he's probably the most pro-Israel person on Capitol Hill right now. He's right about that. He was there with Rabbi Shmuley at the Israel parade. He got a lot of criticism from people in reference to that, people on the Palestinian side. He's been very vocal about that. And all it seemed to take was that one private conversation that he had, like what looks like a dinner party that he had at a dinner, which that video was leaked. And just like that, they turned on him very quickly. This is how they do you. What I tell you about the parties, this is what they'll do. So they turned on him very quickly, even though he was talking about the fact that he was referring to a scientific study. He wasn't trying to say that certain people were targeted more than others, that type of thing. But unfortunately, it was already too late by that point.
So, I've been smeared using phrases and things that I've said completely out of context and attributing meanings to them that I had never intended, and it's a way of censoring me. And I
don't think there's anything more painful, for a lot of people, especially who've been, out there fighting for different causes, than to have a false accusation like that. I just want to say that I know.
I'm very grateful for you saying that.
All right, now let's turn to government censorship. What's going on with this government censorship?
Well, the Judge Doty's decision, there's a federal judge in Louisiana. 2 attorney generals brought a case against the censorship by the White House. And by the way,
my husband has a companion one, full disclosure.
Okay,
yeah.
And I have 3 of those lawsuits now. I was being censored by the Trump White House. This is not a partisan issue. One of the things that it says in this lawsuit is that I was the first one that was who was censored by the Biden White House. Biden came in on January 21st, 2021. On the 23rd, White House officials contacted Facebook and asked them to take my account down.
And if I remember correctly, I believe also his Instagram account has also been removed, if I remember correctly.
And I lost my Instagram account, which is part of Facebook, 3 weeks later, 900,000 followers. There was no misinformation on that account. Every posting that I made was cited to a peer-reviewed publication or a government database. They had to invent a new word called malinformation. Malinformation is, and this is in the judge's decision, is information that is correct, is factually correct, but it is inconvenient or disapproved by the government.
I'm going to rephrase what he just said there and make it not so fluffy. Malinformation is not necessarily information that is untrue, but it's information that is not approved by the State Department. It's information that is not supported by the State Department talking points. That's what it is. Now, he's not going to say it in those terms, but that's exactly what that is. So if the State Department has a narrative about a critical issue, and they have released that statement through the White House government, and mainstream media takes that statement and they also reiterate that same narrative, if you come back with something that's different, they can point to you and say that's malinformation because it's not supported by the State Department. That's how I would phrase it. But he's running for president. That's probably why he didn't say it that way.
So many of the things that they were censoring were things that had nothing to do with COVID. They were censoring Hunter Biden's laptop. At one point, they were asked to censor a parody of the president and Jill Biden. This kind of stuff, and they were threatened.
Why is this happening? We haven't even gotten to AI. I won't talk to you about that tonight. But the first, we have on our lap, this thing that's social media, which is wonderful in some ways, but in some ways, we now have these other issues. So, if elected president, what do you do or not do about any of these things?
I will.
Before he says that, I just want to add something here that I hope everyone heard. One of the topics that they wanted to censor was parodies of Joe Biden and Jill Biden. So you guys know, like the funny memes, like there was memes about Trump, like there were memes about Obama, etc. They actually wanted to censor that to the point where you can't even make jokes about the president. That's how far this has gone. So what would he do if he were president?
Well, immediately, the first day in office, order an end to all attempts by federal agents and federal agencies to censor the speech of Americans. Political speech shouldn't be censored. There's a lot of other things that we can do.
They could also oversaturate, too. The government could also, oversaturate with the other viewpoint, too, if it wanted to combat something that they thought was incorrect.
Meaning that they could platform a particular view while they're suppressing the other, right? So YouTube is a perfect example of this. It's really hard to find independent media on YouTube nowadays, right? Wasn't always that way. I've talked about that before multiple times on the show, but they decided to heavily platform corporate media and suppress independent media. That's why sometimes after you watch my video, you may be recommended a video from CNN, or you may be recommended a video from, what's the other one people tell me they get a lot? Democracy Now! I hear you guys get that one a lot. After you watch me, like you'll be recommended sometimes like shows that you just don't watch, don't even have similar talking points, right? But because they have that attached to corporate, or they're a part of that YouTube algorithm, or they're like TYT and they are a network within YouTube, those are the ones that they will tend to platform and amplify, and they will suppress the ones that have the different narrative, which typically independent commentators, independent media, we tend to have a different point of view. So they'll suppress us. So she's right in the sense that they could in turn do the other thing. They can platform or amplify the opinion that they want people to see. Google does this too, by the way. If you go to Google and you search for something, just, I don't know, something off the wall, RFK Jr., that's a good one. Search for RFK Jr. in Google and see what pops up. You'll probably have to go to like page 4 or 5 before you see something positive. And I'm not an RFK Jr. supporter, but it's very clear that the algorithm works in a certain way to, again, go along with the State Department talking points. You can do the same thing for Russia and Ukraine, by the way. Google Russia and Ukraine and see what comes up.
Well, I mean, and that's what, Judge Learned Hand said, is he said that the remedy for bad speech is not censorship, it's more speech, But we also don't want, the government should not be able to propagandize the American people. And this was that was the law until 2016. In 2016, President Obama signed an executive order that made it now at least provided a loophole that allows government agencies not only to censor Americans, but also to propagandize them. And that executive order needs to be withdrawn.
I was looking forward to today's hearing because I thought there'd be a really good cerebral debate on these issues. And right out of the gate, it got fierce. And, it appeared to me that your own party was going after you, not for what you go, not on the issue of censorship, but there seemed to be sort of a subliminal message about running against President Biden. Am I wrong to be suspicious of that, or do you think it was part of that?
No.
But the Democratic Party is notorious for going after their own members that don't fit the status quo or the narrative that they want to push. They went after Dennis Kucinich. That's why he's not sitting in Congress anymore, right? They redrew his district so that he didn't have one. They went after Cynthia McKinney. That's why she doesn't sit in Congress anymore. They'll get you. They'll get you. And let's remember, even though Bernie Sanders is a registered independent, Bernie Sanders ran through the Democratic Party. And let's remember how they went after Bernie Sanders 2 election cycles in a row, because again, he didn't fit that status quo narrative that they wanted. They don't care if you're a part of the party or not. Think about that for a second. They don't care if you're a member of their party. If you don't do exactly what they think you should do and they want you to do and get on board with being a corporatist and supporting the MIC, they'll remove you too. They don't care. Corporate interest first. That's how they operate. Let me move this back just a little bit because I think he started to say something in it. Okay.
Or do you think it was part of that?
No, I mean, I think it's clear that's, the DNC does not want me running against the president. First of all, you had 102 congresspeople signing a letter to the committee chair asking that I not be allowed to speak. So they actually tried to censor a censorship debate. And, I was in the debate for a very good reason, which is that
you've been censored.
Well, I was the key person being censored. I'm all over the judicial decision. And I was clearly censored for political purposes. And, that's something the government is not supposed to do. And Democrats ought to know that. I mean,
any Democrat pull you aside? Any Democrat pull you aside and say, I don't think it should have been handled this way?
No, that has not happened yet. But there are.
No, when they're not going to do that because they don't want to lose their seat.
Are Democrats who didn't sign the letter. So, and I'm actually interested in looking at that, who they were. But, it's the DNC and the leader of the, kind of the attack was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who
used to run the DNC,
who ran the DNC and who was the architect of Bernie Sanders' ejection from the first place. So it's clear, I have a lot of appeal with rank and file Democrats. Our polling is showing that. When you get up to the upper echelons, to the people who want to protect President Biden and make sure that he's the candidate, the party people, I'm fighting an uphill battle.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., hope you come back. Thank you. Nice.
And I hate to tell you this, RFK Jr., but he's talking about the people higher up the ladder that are there protecting Joe Biden. But at the end of the day, all of them will line up in a row and all of them will protect Joe Biden. I mean, people that are lower on the totem pole, like members of the squad, they've already expressed the fact that they're endorsing Joe Biden. So it's not just people at the top. That's how it is. They want you to get on board or get out. That's how it works. Now, RFK Jr. apparently decided that he was not going to go down without a fight in reference to the type of censorship that he experienced during that hearing in front of Congress. And he decided to go all out and name some names with some receipts. He's here to let people know I am not going down without a fight in reference to this issue. So let's dive into this. Okay, let's heap a few more layers of irony on the mountain of paradox and hypocrisy that congressional Democrats created Thursday in their attempt to censor me from speaking at the censorship hearings. Here we go. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who led the Pitchfork Brigade. Let me make this bigger because he says, man. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who led the Pitchfork Brigade by trying to muzzle me with false accusations of racism and anti-Semitism in 2016, lost her post running the DNC when leaked documents revealed that her DNC staffers were routinely and cynically using anti-Semitism to take down Bernie Sanders. What? I'm just going to say this again. I do not support RFK Jr.'s campaign, but he finally did it. He finally mentioned what they did to Bernie Sanders. And that's just a little bit of it. If he wanted to go even further, he could talk about the DNC fraud lawsuit as well. Let's go on. Taking names. I told you he provided receipts. So he posts this here. Bernie Sanders calls for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign in wake of email leaks. Those staffers also routinely refer to Hispanic voters as taco bowls. He pulled it all out, huh? Here's the Hispanic News Network's blog here. WikiLeaks released DNC email referring to Latinos as taco bowls. And yeah, that is not good. The email by Rebecca Christopher from the DNC refers to Latinos in a video script as taco bowl engagement to attack Donald Trump. Ouch. There's more. Let's go. Is RFK Jr. doing his own version of the Twitter files? Let's go on. Wasserman Schultz has not only refused to condemn the overt anti-Semitic rhetoric of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, but she supported Omar's appointment to the Foreign Relations Committee despite Omar's advocacy of a boycott of Israel. See, now he's going after one of the squad members. Take a look at this, guys. He brought a receipt. Dems mobilized to defend Omar in face of GOP defections. Whoo. Omar used that platform to issue regular libels against Israel and Jews that include references to Jews and their Benjamins. I remember when this happened. I do remember this. I thought, if I remember correctly, I thought Ilhan Omar came back and said that she wasn't referring to it and didn't say that in reference to like a stereotype. All About the Benjamins is something that actually that came from like a Puff Daddy song, like back in the day. Like it was Puff Daddy, Biggie, and Bad Boy Crew or whatever. But apparently the way she explained it is that she didn't realize that that was, you know, a stereotype in reference to Jewish people. He goes on to say, meanwhile, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who took to the hustings to viciously condemn Republicans for inviting me to speak, once invited his uncle Leonard Jeffries to speak at CUNY, a platform he used to explain that the Jewish community was pro-Nazi. And he included a receipt. Now, really quick, I just want to say, I think a lot of you guys know, but Hakeem Jeffries is very vocal about supporting the state of Israel. He's been very vocal about that. He said if there were 6 boroughs, he said that Israel to him would be like the 6 boroughs. So just FYI, like he's not in support of Palestinians. He's not in support of BDS. Very vocal about that. But apparently something happened in the past because RFK Jr. pulled up a receipt here. What happened to the receipt? Oh, let me go back. Hold on. Did he remove it? I'm going to have to go back and check. There was a receipt here. There was an article that he shared. I think Roger sent it to me, so I can just go on my DM and pull that up. Anywho, let's go on. So he's calling out Hakeem Jeffries. Wiserman Schultz has loyally defended Congressman Jeffries against charges of anti-Semitism. But again, Hakeem Jeffries, he's part of the club. He fits right in with them. He's very, corporate. He is, he's against the whole Bernie Sanders type left. He was against Medicare for all. Like, he doesn't agree with any of that. He fits right into the club. So she's going to defend him. Let's go on. I won't be lectured to about anti-Semitism from Democratic lawmakers like Wiserman Schultz, who voted to give Iran $150 billion while that regime promises a new Holocaust against the Jews. Now, this particular situation, I don't know as much about. I've never, heard that said by Iran, so I would have to look into that. But he's saying that. Let's go back here. Boy, I tell you. So he, he really went at it. I'm actually surprised this tweet is still there. Because usually when he receives some type of pushback in reference to his tweets or something like that, he will delete it. And he didn't delete that one. But what he said about Hakeem Jeffries' uncle, let me go ahead and pull that up because I wonder why that's not there anymore. Huh. That is interesting. I just want to pull that up really quick because I'm not going to read the entire article, but I do want you to see what he said. Because I thought that was pretty interesting in reference to Hakeem Jeffries. Like, they're definitely not going to let you in now. RFK Jr., they are definitely not going to let you in now. You went against who do they call the golden one? That's what they consider RFK Jr. to be. All right, let me find that article here. Thought he sent it. I know Roger had sent it to me. It's just in here somewhere. There's so much. Here it is. Oh, yeah. Okay, I do remember this. Let me go ahead and share it here, because I do want you to just at least see the headline so you can see what he's referring to. I didn't know about this, by the way. So let me go ahead and share this here. So this is what he was referring to. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries under fire for defending uncle's anti-Semitic comments while in college. So this article was published April of this year, actually, but I never heard about this. But yeah, apparently it says after he was elected to Congress in 2013, Jeffries told the Wall Street Journal that he only had a vague recollection of the controversy surrounding his uncle, Leonard Jeffries, a former college professor and department chair of Black Studies at the City University of New York. Leonard Jeffries faced severe backlash after he denounced rich Jews and their involvement in the African slave trade and claimed there was a conspiracy planned and plotted and programmed out of Hollywood. Okay, so that happened apparently. And yeah, so he said he had a vague recollection of it. There was no internet during that era. And I can't even recall a daily newspaper in Binghamton, New York area, but it wasn't covering the things that the New York Post and the Daily News were at that point in time. In the piece, Jeffries addressed his uncle's controversy and came to his and the Nation of Islam leader, Louis Farrakhan's defense. And there's his uncle there. So that's what RFK Jr. was referring to. So it's really interesting to me that he pulled it all out, all the stops. He said, that's it. I'm coming for all you motherfuckers. But that being said, when it does come to this particular issue with Israel and Palestine and RFK Jr., you guys know how I feel about that. I've been very vocal about it. Like, you cannot sit here and ignore what is happening to the Palestinian people. Now, Max Blumenthal had some things to say too, and I think you need to see this because Max tweeted, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s position on Israel-Palestine is more extreme than that of the Biden White House or the AIPAC-controlled congressional Dems, as he pledges unequivocal support for the most openly fascistic theocratic government in Israel's history. He is being sheep-herded around by Likud operatives like the fake rabbi and Zionist race hustler Shmuley Botash. So that's the guy you've seen in a lot of the videos with RFK, as well as the genocidal crank Morton Klein. These figures have relied almost entirely on the fortune of the late Sheldon Adelson to survive as public figures. RFK supporters seeking an alternative to the hollow, corporatized pro-war duopoly that monopolizes national U.S. politics must consider the shady characters surrounding the candidate and question whether a wing of one of the most powerful political lobbies in the U.S. history has paid for the candidate's Lukidnick views, dumping dark money into super PACs to propel a campaign that was launched as a frontal assault on the establishment. So Max has some things to say. Here we go. If RFK can be turned to a champion of the largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, a high-tech apartheid colony that provides a testing ground for dystopian surveillance systems, which routinely assault Syria, lobbies for U.S.-led regional war with Iran, and which undermines the speech rights of citizens across the West by branding any and all critics as anti-Semitic, pushing laws from the U.S. to the EU to criminalize their political activities. What's to stop him from compromising on any other anti-war or free speech principle he claims to uphold when a powerful lobby courts him? This reminds me of something that Chuck Modi actually said as well when we had the panel about, third parties recently. And Chuck Modi said if he's willing to cave to pressure and delete tweets, what makes you think he's going to fight to do all these other things that he's running on? And I think that's a good point. But Max went on. A few other questions for RFK Jr. supporters and the candidate himself. If RFK is, in fact, a sincere supporter of Israel's Likud government, where is the record of his ultra-Zionist activism before he launched his presidential campaign? Whoa. And Max is an investigative journalist, so he probably already looked for that. There's more. Why is he actively avoiding publicly engaging with prominent media figures who criticize Israel but sympathize with other aspects of his campaign? I know several on his press list who are being ignored. Yeah, I can speak to that one. We've talked about this on Call-In. I told you guys, I have yet to see him appear on a show that has a left audience. Let me explain what I mean by left. Rising is not left. Breaking Point's audience is not left. Most of the people in those audiences are conservative. So you have to understand, why hasn't RFK Jr. appeared on Katie Halper's show? Why hasn't RFK Jr. appeared on The Gray Zone? Why hasn't RFK Jr. appeared on Bad Faith? He's talked to Bree on Rising. Why isn't he on Bad Faith? Why isn't he on all these other shows? Even if I don't even watch these shows, I don't care. Why isn't he on like, what is it, Crystal Collin Friends? Crystal Collin Friends? Why isn't he gone on to any of these other shows that have a left audience that are going to really push him when it comes to the Israel-Palestine issue? Who is he trying to speak to? And I'll tell you something else too, which we talked about on Call-In. When I spoke to his campaign, when they called me, this was fairly recently, they asked me, what is the political ideology of your audience? That was interesting to me because I have done this for over 2 years. I've interviewed a lot of people, a lot of candidates on this show, and no one ever asked me that question. So I thought that was odd. But I was honest. I said a lot of them came from the Bernie campaign, but are frustrated with Bernie Sanders right now, are frustrated with the progressives. We call them regressives in Congress. But there are also some people that watch my show that are conservatives. There are some people that watch my show that are independents. But the majority of you come from that Bernie Sanders movement, but you are fed up. But why does that matter? Think about this now. If he can go into Fox multiple times, if he can go into Newsmax, he can go to Breaking Points multiple times, he can go into Rising multiple times, why hasn't he gone on to any of these other shows that have a left audience? Why hasn't he gone to the left shows? Yes, he's been on Russell Brand's show. He's been on Glenn Greenwald's show. I think those guys are great. I think they're awesome. But what's the audience? The audience, majority of the audience isn't left. So what's really going on there? JB said, why isn't he on RBN, Sabby Sabs, Black Power Media, Indie News Network? I never reach out so he wouldn't come on my channel. It doesn't even have to be, even if it's not me, he's not going on to those bigger channels. He's not going into Gray Zone has what, 100,000, what, 200, 300? They have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. He's not going on those shows. Have you seen RFK Jr. back on Jimmy Dore's show since he announced that he was running for president? These are things to pay close attention to. All right, let's go on. So Max called that out. I know several on his press list who are being ignored. All of us. And where is his campaign manager, Dennis Kucinich, who has been among the only elected Democrats to defend the rights of Palestinians on the national stage, doing so at a time when the issue was much more difficult to discuss than today? And that's another question that I had too. When we look at Dennis Kucinich, I still find it a little bit strange that he was very vocal about defending the Palestinians, again, on the national stage, to Max's point. But he's RFK Jr.'s campaign manager, and RFK Jr. has this strong position in reference to supporting the state of Israel. You guys don't find that strange? What's this really about? I respect the challenge RFK Jr. has presented to the war state on Ukraine, to corporate media, and to Big Pharma, but the question of Israel and Palestine remains paramount. And he put this picture here where it says fighting anti-Semitism, champion Israel. And that's RFK Jr. there with Rabbi Shmuley. And this is the event that took place tonight. So I mean, I think these are all valid points. I mean, it's very weird to me. Even if he's afraid he's going to get some type of pushback, it's like, Max is Jewish. Like, why would you not go talk to him? I don't, oh my God. But it gets worse because there's something else that's happening too. When I talked about this a little bit earlier on Rising, but I don't know if you've received this text message, but they're already trying to remove RFK Jr. off the ballot. See, this is why you can't be running through the Democratic Party. They're already texting people to kick RFK Jr. off the ballot. I don't support his campaign, but this is wild. Now, this came from IndyCat, and a couple other people sent me this too. This is sheer desperation to prohibit democracy. They know he is a true threat to the power structure. They wouldn't be scared if they didn't know Bobby can win. Shame on Progressive Turnout PAC. Now, Progressive Turnout PAC, this is a part of the Democratic, they are aligned with the Democratic Party. Okay, so here's the text message here. I'm begging, can you sign the petition to ban Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from the ballot? Sign your name, ban RFK Jr. from the ballot. Paid for by Progressive Turnout Project and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. So it just, like, here is an organization aligned with the Democratic Party actively working against you. That's why you can't run through the Democratic Party. That's exactly why. I don't know what to say, man. That's why I said he'd be better off running third party. Like, if he split now and said, look, because of the way I'm being treated, I'm going to run third party or independent, I still think the people who support him will still follow him because they've seen what's been happening to him. Oh, man. I tell you. Let's go to some of the comments, but it's a mess. And it's only going to get worse as we go into 2024. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Oz the Boomer is right. Thank you. That's good to know. I'm sure Oz would appreciate that. Hard Lens is in the chat, says trust the emperor and hit the like button. Thank you, Hard Lens. Thank you, Kit. Serena says no way he doesn't understand the genocide of Palestinians when he's talking about others. Yeah, I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Brother says, I always get Lex Friedman suggestions. That's interesting. I've never interviewed him. I've never been on his show. That's interesting. Swirling says Hedges always comes on after Sabby. Okay, that makes sense because he's been on here. He's been on there multiple times, so that makes sense. Thank you for the super chat, Dave. Team Kennedy is live talking about anti-Semitism right now. Yeah, man. Oh boy. It's crazy out there in the political world. It is crazy. Just wait till next year. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Speaking of RFK, I just got to this event with Lucy and the gang in NYC. I'll let you know what happens. I know you're about to hit him with the Jeffries. Yeah, the Jeffries thing. Oh man, that one's I don't know. That was a doozy. But it's not just RFK Jr. that they're coming after. As you can imagine, they're also coming after people like Cornel West that have decided to run third party. They also consider him to be a threat. They consider anyone to be a threat that is running and trying to challenge Joe Biden because they believe that Joe Biden should just be reelected. We should just hand it over to Joe Biden because he's already in that seat. That's not democracy, but they don't want us to have a choice. They want to tell us who they selected, and they want us to vote for the person that they've already chosen. That's really how it works. Now, Shout out to Case Study QB for this clip. Here is Fox Business talking about both, a little bit about RFK Jr. And Cornel West eating into voters, as they like to put it. Let's listen to this.
Talk about Democrats, because there is panic in the Democrat Party that there could be a third-party candidate that could threaten Joe Biden's reelection. Take a look at this poll showing the willingness of nearly half of American voters neither want to vote for a Republican nor a Democrat, or they're willing to vote for somebody else. That is a remarkable number, which means Joe Biden is in danger. But also, if there's a third-party candidate that's a conservative, the Republican nominee could be in danger because it's.
Let's go back to this number. So I think this is the first time in my lifetime where I have seen 47% consider voting for a third party. That's huge. It'll be one thing it said like 16%, even like 20%, 47%. Because see, now we've already had a Trump presidency and we had a Biden presidency. Biden said he was going to do better than Trump. Trump said he was going to do better than Obama. Now that we've already had both, a lot of people are sitting back and they're looking around and they're like, maybe I just need to vote for someone who's not a part of one of these two parties at all. Right? Now, Sean from the real world, and yes, I do call him that, because to me, he will always be Sean from the real world. He brings up the idea of a conservative third party candidate, the possibility of that. I never really thought about that, but typically the people running third party usually aren't conservative. Even like the libertarians they may lean a little bit to the right, but then they have some views that are different. But I don't know, man. I don't know. But Sean's gonna go back in.
But also, if there's a third-party candidate that's a conservative, the Republican nominee could be in danger because it seems like the American electorate is dissatisfied with all of their choices.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I think the danger is a little bit more for Democrats for one reason. Just because Republicans for 12 years now have been going through this Tea Party movement, and then Donald Trump, who I would argue is a third-party candidate. I mean, the first thing Donald Trump did when he came on the scene was he beat all the Republicans, and then once he did a hostile takeover of the Republican Party, he then went after Hillary Clinton and then took over that as well. The Democrats have managed to keep it together, to keep their corps together and not go through this. So their vote, and we see it with RFK Jr., their voters are dying for somebody different, an outsider, and they keep getting the same corpses like the president, Joe Biden. And it's not working. People don't like him. They don't want him, or they get a Kamala Harris. And so I think that there's a they're trying to sort of keep this thing together as best they can, and that's why they went with Joe Biden in 2020. But I think the seams it's going to come apart at the seams for Democrats because they have not addressed this problem, which is they don't like the party, they don't like the establishment, and they want something different. And it's why.
And let's pause here for a second. You would have thought that with all the support that Bernie Sanders had, you would have thought that would have been a big wake-up call for the DNC, that people want your party to do something different. People want you to move in a different direction. And we cannot forget about the independent voters, the registered independents who every time sit around and wonder, well, what am I going to do this time, right? I would encourage those independents to vote for an independent or a third party candidate and not automatically just choose one of the two parties. You are independent, right? So I think that things are changing. People do want more. Plus, we also have inflation to deal with. Economically, a lot has happened, particularly since the pandemic. So American people are sitting back and they're like, look, things have not improved for me economically. When are these grocery store prices going to go down? They're talking about all these jobs. When am I going to get a raise that isn't pretty much canceled because my health insurance premium increases also when I get that raise? Like, when am I going to get a significant? So people are seeing these things that are happening economically. And like I said, now we've had both. We've had Trump and we've had Biden. And people are still, particularly for the most part, particularly especially working class people, are not happy.
At the end of the day, if Republicans go with Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump wins.
I think you're right. And by the way, if Joe Biden won't debate, RFK has to threaten a third-party candidacy if he doesn't debate, and Joe Biden will show up on stage.
And we were showing Cornel West in that graphic, and both.
Let's pause here for a second. Sean actually had a good point. Something that he said RFK Jr. should do. I don't think RFK Jr. is going to do this, though, but listen to this.
By the way, if Joe Biden won't debate, RFK has to threaten a third-party candidacy if he doesn't debate, and Joe Biden will show up on stage.
That's actually a smart idea. What Sean just said, that if RFK Jr. says, you know what, Joe Biden, if you won't debate me, then I'm going to run third party. That could actually work. That's called using some type of leverage. But I don't think that RFK Jr. is going to do that.
And we were showing Cornel West in that graphic, and both of those men, third party or not, are incredible speakers. And Cornel West, an incredible thinker off the cuff, and 2/3 of voters think Joe Biden is too old for a second term, period, end of story. We've got to jump, Charlie.
And a Cornel West or an RFK Jr. would do more to eat into Trump voters than Biden ever would.
But I think what's important for people to understand, again, for those of us that do vote third party, if Cornel West was not in this race, and if Jasmine Sherman, who's running independent, by the way, I interviewed her as well, was not in this race, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I'm going to stay home. That's what people don't understand. You know, if I do go out and vote, it would be for the ballot measures for Massachusetts. That's it. The ballot measures for my state. And then I would just go home. For example, when I voted in November for the midterms, I didn't vote for any of the Democrats or Republicans. I voted for the positions that had a third party candidate. And then I voted for the ballot measures. And then I went home. That's it. That's it. That's the thing that people have to understand, right? But there's more because David Axelrod, who comes from the Obama camp, right? He's been pretty vocal himself, and he thinks that Cornel West is a serious threat. And he feels that the Democratic Party should be taking this more seriously, and they should be doing more than what they're doing right now. Let's go ahead and dive into this. Again, shout out to Case. He's been killing it. Let's listen to what David Axelrod had to say. And they have a panel here where they're going to talk about if it's right, if it's true that David Axelrod, what he's saying here is correct.
President Biden is prepared to take on a Republican on the ballot next fall, but is he ready for a challenge from the left? Cornel West, a semi-celebrity among progressives, is running on the Green Party ticket next November.
She said a semi-celebrity. Was that interesting to you guys? That she called Dr. West a semi-celebrity? You know, not a professor, philosopher, author, semi-celebrity.
That's the same party that Democrats blame for spoiling the 2016 election. And CNN's Isaac Joubert and Eva McKend are here with new reporting on growing concerns among some Democrats who see a progressive Green Party bid sneaking up on President Biden. And they're here to discuss now. First of all, this quote from David Axelrod, who's our colleague, who helped get Barack Obama elected. This is going to sneak up on people. And he said, I don't know why alarm bells aren't going off now. They should be at a steady drumbeat from now until the election. I'm sure they were thrilled to see that in the White House.
Let me pause there. So David Axelrod is trying to warn people. Again, that's the former advisor of Barack Obama. He's trying to basically warn the Democratic Party that you guys need to wake up now if you don't understand what's happening here. It's really interesting to me. It's just like this idea that you have to vote for one of these two parties. It is just such a confined way of thinking. You know, you're not thinking outside the box, and the fact that they want you to remain in this box. And it's like they don't want you to do anything different. It's just so old school. It's just, you know, well, you better pick this or you better pick that one. It's just like, really? We've come so far in this country in reference to technology. But when it comes to voting, they want you to do the same old, same old. They don't want any changes. It's crazy stuff, man.
As they often are when David Axelrod makes a comment like that. But look, with the mixed metaphor that he used there, though, is getting at where a lot of Democrats are thinking about this. And within the Biden campaign itself, there's not concern so far about this, but the Green Party has a ballot line in a number of states already. I think it's 16 states already. In 2016, they were in 44 states. So when you think about the attention that's been going to this no labels possibility and how that could spoil the election, they are still getting on the ballot, whereas the Green Party is much easier to get there and would be there with a candidate who is well known among progressives, has celebrity and connection to a lot of black voters. And that is what is generating this concern.
Such an important.
Want to bring this up as well. This is why we continue to say it needs to be someone who's well known. If you have someone that is well known, that a lot of people love, like younger people like Cornel West, older people like Cornel West, like he's been around for a long time. He's been involved in activism. Are there things that he can work on? You know, absolutely. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate. But the thing is, this is a different type of candidate. And the Green Party hasn't had that. You know, Jill Stein was freaking awesome, but a lot of people didn't know who Jill Stein was until she ran. And then after she ran, most people already know who Cornel West is. See, that's the difference. Same thing. If Jesse Ventura would have decided to run Green Party in 2020, he would have also made a big splash because everybody knows Jesse Ventura, right? So this is what they're really afraid of. They do not want this to happen.
Point. And you have a quote in your story from the Michigan Democratic Party chair saying, I don't think Cornel West or the Green Party is something we need to worry about, but it's absolutely something we need to keep an eye on. But I'm sure that that party chair knows the history of that state and also Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Back in 2016, you just have to look at what happened. The Green.
Pause. This is something I want to go ahead and debunk because they love to continue to say this. They're going to point out the number of votes that Jill Stein got in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And remember, Hillary Clinton did lose those states. And what, Trump's margin was. Before they get into their spiel, I just want to interrupt by saying this. How many electoral college votes did Jill Stein win? I'll wait. How many? Which states went to Jill Stein? Which states went to Gary Johnson? You see why this doesn't make any sense? When they make these claims and they say, oh no, this person's going to be a spoiler. It's Jill Stein's fault. She's the reason why Hillary Clinton lost those states. No. Those voters would have never voted for Hillary Clinton. These 49,000 people that voted for Jill Stein in Pennsylvania didn't want to vote for Hillary. Why can't they understand that? These 51,000 that voted for Jill Stein in Michigan did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton. Some of these could have been the Bernie. These were states that Bernie Sanders was beloved in. A lot of people liked Bernie in Wisconsin. They liked him in Michigan. Let's all remember, right? So again, what did we tell you? At one point, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were neck and neck, but at one point, Bernie Sanders was actually above Hillary Clinton. The DNC picked the candidate that was actually the loser candidate to run against Donald Trump. But when it comes to the Electoral College, no third-party candidate has won a state. So the argument that they continue to say is that she took these votes away from Hillary. Really? Hillary owns votes? Does Hillary own you? Think about what they're saying to you. I don't know about you, but I don't belong to anybody. That's terrible. This rhetoric is terrible.
Party. Look at Jill Stein was on the Green Party ballot then. Look at the votes she got and look at Donald Trump's margin.
Now, Democrats can't afford to cede any of their coalition. So I think that some are recognizing that they would be remiss to ignore the threat of Cornel West.
Instead of talking about the threat of Cornel West or the threat of RFK Jr., you notice you don't see them mentioning the other side, which is, why the hell is Joe Biden doing so damn bad? Why did Joe Biden let it get to this point? You never hear them say that. Like, wow, how could Joe Biden allow all those Democrats who supported him in 2020 to walk away? What did he do wrong? What were the failures of his presidency so far? That's who they should be putting the blame on Joe Biden. No, they're putting the blame on people who want to run against him and perform better. It's like you have two basketball teams and it's the NBA championship. And it's like, the team that wins, let's say the Lakers wins, but they don't really. But let's say that the Lakers win. And it's like, instead of the sore loser team congratulating the Lakers, which is what I had to do when we played sports, at the end of the game, you go by and say, good game. You congratulate it. That's being a good sport. Instead of that, the whole damn team that lost saying, putting the blame on other people, other reasons as to why they lost. No, that other team won because they performed better. That's how you have to look at it. Joe Biden right now is at risk of losing re-election because he has not performed well. It's that simple. Let's go on.
That struck me about our conversation with him is the attacks are so pointed. And I asked him, did you vote for President Biden in 2020? Why are you so disappointed by him? And then when you kick the tires a bit, even though he was part of this anti-fascist coalition of Bernie Sanders supporters that spoke well of Biden, he got in the voting booth and didn't actually vote for Joe Biden. And the way that he described that evolution on that issue, I think was in an authentic way that other progressives will be able to connect with that message. So I think that should be of concern to Democrats.
Not performing.
Yeah, like the argument that Jill Stein makes for what happened in 2016 and West echoes, and should be said, Stein is working on West's campaign now, is that those voters wouldn't have turned out at all. They weren't Hillary Clinton voters who left. Yeah. That is not something that is going to put people in a very comfortable place going into what many of us expect to be a tight election.
Such important report.
And this will continue to happen. That will continue to happen. It's interesting, though, because they will interview, these pundits about why voters voted the way that they did. But again, you never see them out in the streets interviewing the voters, asking them why they voted the way that they did. And if they do have these little panels or these focus groups that they tend to do on CNN, these are people that have been pre-screened and they already know that they're going to say something that is favorable for the network. FYI, those people just aren't randomly selected. So that's important for people to understand. So the thing that I continue to say is that if you want to know why people voted the way that they did, you need to talk to the people who actually voted. I think that's really important. Now, neoliberal tears had a tweet here in reference to Dr. West and Axelrod. I thought this was important. Neoliberal tears said, I love that a strategist literally gave a quote saying Biden should get Dr. West and his supporters in an effing room and ask what they want and include it in the platform. A useless gesture that costs them nothing, but still shows they are scared. And here's the screenshots here. Democratic jitters grow over a Cornel West third-party bid. And here, one Democratic campaign strategist said Biden should include West in conversations about the direction of the party as a way to keep him and fellow progressives on board. Get them in the effing room and ask what they want and include it in the platform. They don't actually intend to do it. But let's go on. The strategist said, adding progressives love West run. I think they'll be happy if he moves Biden's rhetoric left. This is the same thing that they thought would happen with Bernie Sanders, right? So some of the people that supported Bernie in 2020 were like, okay, maybe it is possible that Bernie is going to be able to move Biden left. I didn't think that was possible. And I was right. Because if Bernie would have been able to move Biden left, then the DNC wouldn't have tried so hard to prevent Bernie Sanders from winning. if they really want those policies to pass. Now, it's not just a CNN. We also have Simone Sanders here, also concerned about a third party run. Now, you know, she had to get in on this. You know, they had to bring her in. So here we are talking about Senator Murkowski saying the choice between Trump and Biden is a choice between the lesser of two evils. And so I told you guys before, this is what they will continue to do. They will continue to encourage the American people that by supporting Joe Biden, you're actually supporting the lesser of two evils. What you should be asking them is, why the hell y'all got me voting for evil? Why are the choices evil and evil? Let's get into this. Shout out to Case Study QB for this clip.
There's an active Republican presidential primary, but there's lots of talk about third party. And Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska said that she would vote for Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia if he ran for president as an independent. She called the choice between President Biden and Donald Trump the, quote, lesser of two evils. Congressman, I think that we've all been a part of these elections and seen presidentials, but in this case, the language here matters. And this is not a scenario where Donald Trump and Joe Biden are on the same footing when we're talking about the kind of people that they are. I think this is language that the lesser of two evils is language that has regularly shown up in presidential elections. And frankly, maybe people are using
They're not on the same footing as the type of people that they are. Let's check this out. Joe Biden, crime bills, I should add. Okay. Joe Biden accused of sexual assault. Donald Trump accused of sexual assault. I mean, I don't know. You know, Joe Biden right now with his in trouble with his business dealings in Ukraine. Joe Biden trying to cover up for Hunter Biden's laptop. You see, people like Simone Sanders, they're pawns. They're in this spot for a reason. Let's remember where Simone Sanders came from, okay? Simone Sanders was a part of the Bernie Sanders campaign. She left the Bernie Sanders campaign because she realized that he was not going to have the opportunity to win, jumped on the Joe Biden bandwagon, rode that coattail, even dashed across the stage during one of Biden's speeches during his campaign and knocked over a protester that she felt was about to try to attack Joe Biden when there was security there to do that. So she ran across the stage to protect Joe Biden in all hopes that when Joe Biden won, he would make her his press secretary. That did not happen. He made Jen Psaki his press secretary. And Simone Sanders gave a whole interview about how disappointed and hurt she felt. So they gave her this gig. Congratulations. You still get to push State Department talking points and you're on MSNBC. That's how they shut her up. That's how they hushed up her complaints. All you got to do was go on there and still kiss Joe Biden's ass. Let's continue on.
Shown up in presidential elections. And frankly, maybe people are using the term back in the day when it really didn't apply. But there's not a lesser of two. I mean, there is a lesser of two evils here. And I would argue Donald Trump is not in the running. Okay. Well, just your thoughts about this language and then the third party bids.
Well, yeah, I'm very familiar with what No Labels is doing. They are simply trying to provide ballot access for a potential independent candidacy, a fusion ticket, Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican. That's what they're after. They want to have some additional choices and competition. That's what this is about. And I actually think this is healthy for a democracy.
Really?
I think when we see both candidates, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden, have large segments of the American population who don't want them to run.
So this gentleman here says he actually thinks it's healthy for democracy to have third party candidates. Simone Sanders goes, really? They don't even understand what democracy means. Or maybe they do understand what it means, but they want you to think that democracy means one of these two parties. Tell me how this makes sense, people. Every presidential election cycle, the DNC hand select the candidate that they want. And anyone who tries to challenge that or is running from the outside of that status quo, they do everything that they can to smear them and prevent them from getting there, right? They selected Obama. They tried to select Pete. That did not go well because they didn't understand that Black people, apparently, particularly in South Carolina, are not really feeling Pete, though. But if they would have spoken to Black people in South Bend, Indiana, where Pete was mayor, they would have known about that. They tried to select Kamala Harris when they realized the Pete thing wasn't going to work out. Then they realized black people didn't really like her either. They would have realized that if they spoke to black people in California. She couldn't even get a delegate. So that's really what they want. They want to pick the person and say, okay, that's the person we chose. Now go to the polls and go vote for them. They don't want you to really have a choice. They want you to have the illusion of having a choice. Isn't this the craziest thing that you ever heard? Let's go on.
They're looking for something different. You know, I never voted for Donald Trump, and I voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. But personally, I would, like Murkowski, I would like to see another alternative out there that's perhaps a bit more centered politically. And I know a lot of people are out there saying how this is going to affect the election. Nobody really knows how it would affect the election.
Do you think it would affect the election?
Oh, it could, but I don't know how it will. It's far too early to tell. Until there are candidates named and we get further down and how the media narrative plays out, I don't think we're really going to know. So I think all this speculation right now about who's going to be harmed or helped is premature.
All right. We'll have to leave it there.
You know how he said that, right? He called it premature with a smile on his face. Put a smile on your face. Now, there are people out there who are arguing still that Democrats are a trillion times better than Republicans. I say it's two wings of the same bird. I don't really think these parties are that much different. They're both corporate. They both support Wall Street, and they both support the military-industrial complex. Even when it comes to the war issue, all you got to do is change Ukraine with China, and you'll see how some people that are politicians in D.C. will easily flip on that. And I think Nick, my comrade from RBN, really addressed that very well in his clip here with Hotspot. So Nick and Nico have been doing these, they're like 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minute clips with Hotspot, really just breaking things down. Go at it, Nick.
The 2024 campaign season is here, so now we got to deal with more lesser of two evils garbage. Democratic Party operative Kyle Kalinske claims the Democratic Party is a trillion times better than the Republican Party. We told you guys at RBN that Marianne Williamson supporters are just Democratic Party sheepdogs. Marianne Williamson's campaign is dead on arrival, so her supporters are skipping steps, and now they're just becoming full-fledged Biden bro Democrats. My sincere question is, under what metric is Biden or Democrats a lesser two evils than Donald Trump? Joe Biden is funding ICE $6 billion more than Donald Trump. Joe Biden took COVID relief funds and gave it to the police. It's the Democratic Party that is building Cop City. Joe Biden expanded public drilling. He's a fracker, and he approved of the Willow Project. The fact that climate activists are endorsing this guy shows that they truly don't believe in what they are saying. Joe Biden has threw millions of people off of their health care. Joe Biden also said he would veto Medicare for all if it ever came to his desk. Tell me more about how you care about Medicare for all, though, Kyle Kalinske. But Nick, Biden is the lesser of two evils because Donald Trump is a maniac who may plunge us into World War III. That's actually Joe Biden.
I just got to say, well said, Nick. The things that you just heard Nick say there, you're not going to hear them mentioned on MSNBC or on CNN. All of those things are true. It's gotten to the point now where independent media commentators are now trying to make excuses for Joe Biden because, like Nick just said, they realize that the person that they chose, Marianne Williamson, is not going anywhere, which means that won't be profitable for them. Let's keep it real. This is all about money. It won't be profitable for them. So now they got to piggyback and jump on that Biden wave so they can continue to remain relevant and continue to make millions of dollars. That's what this shit is about. Now, James Clyburn also, as you can imagine, totally against this, and not just against Cornel West, but this no labels idea in general as well. Listen to this. This is hilarious. Uncle Ruckus has some things to say.
On that point, Congressman, Republican voters not taking a chance on that person. A new poll shows that a third-party candidate could draw as much as a third of the vote in 2024. A third-party candidate very well might hurt the chances of the Biden-Harris ticket getting reelected. How much does this possibility worry you?
Well, I'm concerned about that, but I've looked at the history of this, Jonathan. You know me very well, and you know that I'm not going to just take things on face value. I'll look at it. People have to remember that Bill Clinton became president of the United States with only 42%. But Ross Perot was the third party candidate. He got a big number, and it helped Bill Clinton.
Also, Bill Clinton was also selected. Let's keep it real. Also, yes, Ross Perot he got like 18% of the vote, but again, not directing it back to the problem. The problem was people were so turned off by re-electing George Bush Sr. They didn't want to re-elect him. What did he do under his presidency that turned people off and pushed people towards a Ross Perot or push people towards a Bill Clinton? That's the part that they're not mentioning, and I think that's very important.
I don't think Bill Clinton would have got elected were it not for a third party. So I'm not.
That's a damn lie. Bill Clinton was already hand selected. Bill and Hill, they came as a package deal. Okay. Let me tell you something. I seriously believe, I don't think that Hillary Clinton was just like, oh, hey, this is such a nice young guy that I've met in college who really likes me. Yeah, I think I'll marry this guy and, we'll just see where it goes. Hell no. I think Hillary was calculated from the get-go. I think Hillary Clinton knew exactly what she could get out of Bill Clinton. I think she knew that she could wear the pants in that relationship. And I think she knew all I got to do is keep pushing this guy. I'll push him to run for governor. I'll push him to run for president. He'll get in. And then before you know it, it'll be my turn. Anytime the guy was sitting up there, we talk about affairs and him having an affair with Monica Lewinsky, that continued from the very get-go of their relationship, boo. And she still decided to get married to him. Could have just been a relationship of convenience of sorts. But I think she's very calculated. I think she knew exactly what she wanted from Bill Clinton.
I'm getting all exercise over whether or not there is a third-party candidate. I don't think there should be. I'm against what this no labels people are doing. I think some of them are just playing games. They're not being transparent to American people. We don't know where their money is coming from.
Oh, now all of a sudden we need to know where the money is coming from. Now all of a sudden Jim Clyburn cares about where the money comes from. Well, where does your money come from, Jim? How much money are you getting from Big Pharma these days? How much money are you getting from Blue Cross Blue Shield? Now all of a sudden it matters. When all these other candidates, like when Bernie Sanders ran and said, we got to talk about the money, you didn't want to hear none of that, Jim. But now all of a sudden we need to worry about where the money's coming from. You see how this works? When it's someone that they don't really want, oh no, we can't challenge Joe Biden. We need to talk about where the money's coming from. Where's Joe Biden's money coming from, Jim? Mm-hmm.
And they won't tell us where the money is coming from. The same kind of thing happened in 2016. And now we see where some of that money was coming from and some of that aid was coming from. I just don't think we ought to give credibility to anybody running for president, and they won't be transparent about where their finances are coming from.
But we should give credibility to you. But we should give credibility to Joe Biden. This is the same representative that when he is approached by climate activists, when he's been approached by reparations activists, he yells at them and tells them, get out my face. Leave me alone. Go away. It's all on video every time. What has Jim Clyburn done since he's been in office other than continue to brag, I support HR 40? Yes, he's part of the Black Caucus, but what has he actually done?
And on that note, we're going to have to leave it there. Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina.
James Clyburn lives in one of the poorest districts in South Carolina, but James is not poor. While everybody else struggling in his district, he's still making a lot of money. And I think JB said it best. In a world full of Jim Clyburns, being a Molly Yeshitela, Yes, JB, I agree. In a world like this, be an Amali Yeshitela. Don't be a Jim Clyburn. Don't be an Uncle Ruckus. I'll go to some of the comments in the chat. Very well said, JB. Spike says 47% with all the info we have on both parties. I'm surprised it's not higher. That's a good point. I think a lot of people are not even tuned in politically right now because the election's not till next year. Thank you for the super chat. Space. I never got why is there all this concern about Israel, but nobody ever talks about Native American apartheid and genocide on American soil. Because there's no money in that space. Just keeping it real. That's what it's all about. There's no oil in that. Thank you for the super chat, Janice. They understand. They use a fraudulent narrative to inspire fear voting in the less politically engaged or aware. They are terribly manipulative. And thank you for this super chat, Space. I wish the left had 1/10 concern for Natives people as they do for Palestinians. Natives have the highest poverty rate, most likely to be killed by police on American soil, and nobody cares. You bring up a good point. I mean, I've had this discussion on this show with Native Americans. So Notori says Simone doesn't believe any of this ish. She's saying, but it's a check. Thank you for the chat, KD. Just finished watching Systems Update with Glenn Greenwald. He roasted Biden's and his corruption and came with receipts. I think Biden is in trouble. Ooh, I'm going to have to check that out, KD. And thank you, Cool Blue. Bad economy. It's the economy, stupid. With election 1992, flip the presidency from R to D. Republicans won all 3 consecutive cycles of the 1980s. That is true. That is true. Well said. Okay. We have one more story that I do want to cover. Russell Brand actually, believe it or not, interviewed Ron DeSantis. Now, I actually was kind of surprised that Ron DeSantis went on to independent media. But granted, he did do the Twitter space, you know. I think maybe things are starting to change a little bit in reference to presidential candidates and choosing to be a part of independent platforms. But the section of the interview I want to focus on tonight is whether or not Ron DeSantis can beat Donald Trump. And I want you to hear what he has to say. I do have disagreement, but I want you to hear what he has to say. And then also, it was brought to my attention. Apparently, Ron DeSantis was in a car accident today. Interesting timing, don't you think? Let's go ahead and get into it. Here is Russell Brand here with Ron DeSantis.
In the chat what you think of this conversation. How do you, in your position, knowing that there is no pathway to the presidency via Donald Trump, that this is a phenomena and a fact that you're going to have to deal with, how do you confront his position in the polls? And what would you do about some of the charges that Donald Trump is facing in the event that you were president? And also, how does it personally feel as, you know, like just talking to you for a while, and clearly you and I would see a whole host of issues very differently, but it's pretty clear that you're a pretty potent political voice and figure and orator. How do you deal with the sort of wild card of Donald Trump and what he represents to so many people?
Well, look, this is a campaign that's still very early on. Most people are not paying attention over the summer. They're doing things like be with their families and they're enjoying themselves. So
yeah, it is earlier on and people are doing things with their family over the summer, but that still doesn't explain why you keep decreasing in the polls next to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump continues to increase against Ron DeSantis every week. So what it does mean is that the people who are paying attention don't want you. Ron DeBoring.
We've been laying the groundworks in the early states. The media will talk about polls, but they'll take a poll from the whole country. That's not how the primary process works. You do Iowa, then New Hampshire, then South Carolina. So we're actually on the ground in those states doing the work that is not always kind of headline grabbing, but it's really grassroots, and we're building support. So we're doing a good job. You know, we're going to continue to do more. I think at the end of the day, looking forward, our voters, they want to win. And so we need to beat Biden. I will beat Biden. And then they want somebody that's actually going to be able to deliver on all the things that we care about. And you and I have talked about some of the issues. We also have the border. We also have a whole bunch of other things. And I have a record in Florida. When I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm not just out there doing idle promises. I know how many people run for office. They overpromise and underdeliver. Well, I think.
But right now, he's talking about his record in Florida. But right now, Donald Trump is beating him in Florida. I can't make this up. Right now, Donald Trump is beating him in Florida in reference to Republican voters. We covered this a couple days ago. So maybe the things that you got done in Florida, Ron DeSantis, people aren't too happy about. Let's continue. Let's listen to the torture dome.
Yeah, I'm going to do something. I do it. I'm not just out there doing idle promises. I know how many people run for office. They overpromise and underdeliver. Well, I think I'm one of the few where I made bold promises, no doubt, but I overdelivered on the promise. And part of the reason I do it is because I'm a former military officer, so I'm disciplined. I
might not want to get into that conversation. For those who don't know, we talked about one time before on this show about his involvement in Guantanamo Bay when he was a JAG officer and how he not only supported torture, but encouraged it. So Abby Martin has done a really good job investigating that particular story. So when he starts talking about like how he was in the military, I'm like, might not want to get into that conversation. Oh, man.
Don't give the other side a lot of rope to hang me with. I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I'm focusing on the task at hand. I'm focused. I'm disciplined. And it's all about accomplishing the mission. And I think our voters are in a situation where increasingly they're saying, you know, that's what we have to do. Also, the way the United States is with a 2-term limit for president, Trump would be a 1-term lame duck. I could serve 2 terms. So I'm in my 40s. I would go in on day 1. I'd be incredibly energetic. I would be very active. You want to talk about the administrative state?
He will be energetic and very active. Is that the impression that you get from Ron DeSantis, that he's energetic and active? I don't get that impression. He comes across as boring to me. He doesn't come across as charismatic. Like, honestly, it just, I'm thinking about some of the professors that I had when I was in undergrad, and there were some of them that were like energetic and really engaging with the class. And then there were some of them that the moment they start talking, I'm ready to take a nap. And I don't see, no. I don't see no energy. I don't see any engagement, Ron.
We would be able to slay the administrative state. We'd secure the border. We do all these things, and it would really be a flurry of activity. So more and more people are going to see that. We haven't even had debates yet. And just keep an eye on those early states, because I like what I'm seeing there. It's a little bit different on the ground than some of the stuff that gets put out on some of the national stuff.
How do you manage the tension when there is a plain appetite in your country for anti-establishment figures? RFK becoming an emergent force in the Democrat Party, Trump having been the defining figure in the last 5, 6, 7 years in American politics and American campaigns. How do you deal with managing the tension of being a representative of establishment forces while acknowledging that many people no longer trust the media, many people no longer trust the government, many people are deeply cynical about American institutions? How do you deal with the massive mistrust and near-nihilism of American cultural life? Can we imagine a situation where whatever the result of the next presidential election, the opposing side will likely say the election was stolen, it was because of Russians, it was because of broken or corrupt voting machines? How can you ever bring together and justify a centralized American experiment, particularly when when you seem to believe so strongly in decentralization, federalism, and maximum democracy. How do you deal with this mistrust and this great appetite for outsiders?
Well, one, I would push back on this idea that I'm representing establishment forces. I get attacked by the corporate press more than anybody running for office, more than
BS. He gets attacked by the corporate press more than RFK Jr. is attacked, more than Cornel West is attacked. Let's remember what Tucker Carlson revealed, right, when he left Fox News, that Rupert Murdoch had already decided that this time around, Fox News was going to support Ron DeSantis. They were not going to go with Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis has corporate backing, whether it's the Fox News network through Rupert Murdoch, or whether it's through someone like David Sachs, who also heavily supports Ron DeSantis. People who have held fundraisers for Ron DeSantis. Here he is already lying. You're not even on the real campaign trail yet. You're not on the debate stage, and he's already lying to you. And we're going to expose this because this is BS. He is 100% corporate, and people really need to take this in. He is lying. Jeez Louise. You don't have to worry about me with corporate backing. Bull crap.
Well, one, I would push back on this idea that I'm representing establishment forces. I get attacked by the corporate press more than anybody running for office, more than Joe Biden, and now more than Donald Trump, because I think the corporate press views me as a bigger threat.
He mentioned two people that are running for office and said he's getting attacked the most. He didn't mention RFK. He didn't mention Cornel West. He didn't mention anybody else that's running for office. You see how that worked? All he had to do was just say, let me mention the main people.
They understand that I will beat Biden, and they know I will actually deliver on all these things. Whereas I think they think that Trump would not beat Biden. And then I think they think even if he did, that he would be distracted with all these other stuff and wouldn't be able to deliver. So I've been the target of all these people. And I think it's because I've been willing to lead. Also, I would point out during COVID, I was the one fighting Fauci. Donald Trump put.
We got to skip this part. Sorry. I do remember that part. That is true, but we got to skip it because of YouTube. Sorry, guys. Leaders of the world. Misrepresentation. And
we're getting answers for that. So I think I present a great opportunity for people because I have all the right enemies. You see it by how they're attacking me, but I also have a proven record of beating these people, and we would do the same thing as president.
Thank you, Rob.
No, we don't see it by the people attacking him, because I don't think a lot of people are even paying attention to him. Like, this is what I'm sorry, but I don't think a lot of people are paying attention. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's very revealing. Let's go on a little bit further here because a sponsorship comes in and I just don't want to, I don't like playing the sponsorship stuff because I'm not trying to sponsor anything. Here we go.
As long as enough people use the link. Two of the most powerful voices in the space that you currently occupy, Governor, have to be regarded as Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. Both of them have taken strong, overt, explicit anti-war stances, saying, among other things, that the Pentagon can't pass an audit, the money that American taxpayers are funneling into this Ukraine war that increasingly seems like a disaster and a proxy war ought be immediately ended. The peaceful solution ought immediately be sought. As a former military officer, where do you stand on this conflict? And are you willing to match that kind of anti-war rhetoric? And how do you reconcile the enormous revenue, the vast budgetary and treasury weight that this war and the military-industrial complex places on the American people generally, with the conditions that many former military personnel CORNEL are enduring, many of them having to use food banks, many of them, like a significant number, ending up homeless. A great stain on American culture, I would say, is the rhetoric that supports veterans and the shameful way in which they are treated. What is your stance on this current conflict, and would you end this war?
Let me just pause here for a second, because this was the moment when I realized I don't think that Russell Brand knew about his military past, about his, involvement in Guantanamo Bay, about his position as a JAG officer, about how he actually feels about torture. I have this feeling that maybe he didn't know about that. Because this is where I think if I am bringing up the anti-war issue, I'm going to bring up that. I'm going to mention, well, what is it with the stories that I've heard about you at Guantanamo Bay? And the reason why I say that is because Ron DeSantis does not like to talk about that. He doesn't speak much about his time at Guantanamo Bay. He doesn't speak much about, his position as a JAG officer and his time there. And I think this is something that, should be pushed a little bit more, but let's go.
So one, on the military industrial complex, we are actually going to overhaul how these retired generals are allowed to then just go work for defense contractors. As commander in chief, you can put restrictions on that. You basically have a revolving door where people go from high military positions into just a handful of major defense contractors. We're also going to democratize the ability of people, because we obviously need to have a strong defense, but we don't want it to go to just a handful of companies. We used to have all these companies like during World War II. So we want to do that for sure. And we absolutely need an accounting to just do a blank check. That doesn't serve the American people. And when I was in Iraq, the thing that I noticed was, and this was 2007, so we were there fighting Al-Anbar province, Al-Qaeda in Iraq. I was attached to Navy SEAL Team 1, and the mission was very murky. Yeah, beat Al-Qaeda, but then create a democracy in the Middle East and Iraq. Well, we weren't able to do that. And so you ended up being there for many years. There was a lot of money spent. There was no clear-cut victory. Same with Afghanistan. And I think what's happening in Ukraine is they're barreling towards a multi-year stalemate where a lot more people are going to die, where you're going to have a lot of treasure that's going to be spent for basically no change in outcome. And so what I've said is we need to focus on achieving a sustainable peace in Europe. We should not want to see this thing go on. We have
I'm sorry.
Problems.
I have to pause. I was going to let him finish his statement, but I have to pause here and interrupt. He has flip-flopped on his position in reference to Ukraine. At one point, he did support the blank check that was going out to Ukraine. When he started to realize that Trump had a different position in reference to that war, and that was more popular, particularly with his base, then he changed his position. So I did want to tell people this, like, don't buy into this crap that Ron DeSantis is saying here. I don't believe this 1 minute. I don't believe that he's against the blank check. I believe he's still very much a war hawk. I don't buy it. I don't believe anything coming out of his mouth. When I look at this man's face, I see the word liar. I just see it. But he's talking around all of this rhetoric, this position. In other words, no, he is not anti-war, and he's not going to be anti-war. He may have criticisms with the amount of money that was spent. He may have criticisms with the length of time that American soldiers spent in other countries trying to implement some type of regime change. Doesn't mean he's against regime change. So we have to pay attention to the things that he's saying and the question that he was just asked. The very first thing that came out of not Ron DeSantis, very first thing that came out of Russell Brand's mouth was the anti-war position. And he doesn't want to say that because he's not anti-war. That's just is what it is. All this other little small talk, I got some issues with the money that was spent. We were over there in Iraq for so long and da-da-da. We got to do something about that. We got to get the corporate money out. Now, I just told you that he's already tied to corporations. He's already approved by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, a billionaire. He's already had fundraisers by people like David Sachs, another billionaire. So he is tied to corporations. And here he is trying to tell the people, well, we need to get the corporations, out of the military involvement. That's bullshit. You're already attached to the corporate money and corporate interest. Let's go back a little bit and we'll let him finish. This guy's such a fraud.
Well, we weren't able to do that. And so you ended up being there for many years. There was a lot of money spent. There was no clear-cut victory. Same with Afghanistan. And I think what's happening in Ukraine is they're barreling towards a multi-year stalemate where a lot more people are going to die, where you're going to have a lot of treasure that's going to be spent for basically no change in outcome. And so what I've said is we need to focus on achieving a sustainable peace in Europe. We should not want to see this thing go on. We have pressing problems at home that we're neglecting, as you mentioned, our own veterans. We have an open border in the United States of America. We have American families that are losing children to fentanyl overdose by the tens of thousands because we haven't secured our own border. And yet what? We've sent how many hundreds of billions of dollars there? They're not sending that to us. Also,
he got that talking point from other people. He was not saying that stuff before. He got that talking point from other people.
So I do think we have threats in this world, such as the Chinese Communist Party. What you've seen is the amount of ammunition and the amount of weapons that have been sent to the Ukraine has actually dwindled our own stocks so that if we were potentially in a major conflict, we would not be able to likely to respond. Now, Donald.
That doesn't make any sense. What is he talking about? It dwindles our own stock. They continue to make the weapons. These companies didn't go out of business. Raytheon didn't go out of business. These companies, they continue to make the weapons. What is he talking about? That takes away from our own stock and we're not going to be prepared. What? Listen to the China part because I'm trying to show you what he says here doesn't make any sense. Let me get to the China part here. Okay, right here.
Losing children to fentanyl overdose by the tens of thousands because we haven't secured our own border. And yet what? We've sent how many hundreds of billions of dollars there? They're not sending that to us. Also, I do think we have threats in this world, such as the Chinese Communist Party. What you've seen is the amount of ammunition and the amount of.
So he says we have threats, which is the Chinese Communist Party, but he doesn't say what the threat is with China. That's the piece I think is very telling. He doesn't tell you, okay, what is the threat with China? He just goes on to say we're giving all these weapons to Ukraine and that takes away our stocks and prevents us from being unprepared. Unprepared for what? What is the threat with China that he's talking about? He doesn't say. I'll tell you what the threat is. It's economic. It's the fact that China has most of the top 10 banks in the world. That was not always the case. Think about that. The U.S. government wasn't thinking about that when they decided to send jobs overseas to China. Economic.
Of weapons that have been sent to the Ukraine has actually dwindled our own stocks so that if we were potentially in a major conflict, we would not be able to likely to respond. Now, Donald Trump, had made different comments. The other day, he said he wanted to flood Zelensky with weapons. So I'm not exactly sure, where he is on that. But I think the goal needs to be no blank check and have a sustainable peace in Europe. It doesn't serve our interest.
That's actually not exactly what Trump said. What Trump said was that he would call for peace. He would end it on day one. And they said, well, what happens if, Putin doesn't want to back down? He said, then he would make the threat that we're going to flood Ukraine with the weapons as a way to push him to agree to peace. But Ron DeSantis left that part out. Oh my God.
Chris, to be involved in this thing infinitum.
Join us every day for Stay Free with Russell Brand. If you like this video,
I don't know how Russell Brand got through that interview, because that one was a rough one for me. But look, long story short, he is corporate. He was lying to you guys. He lied to Russell Brand. This guy is very much captured by billionaire money as well. He's not going to be any different. Just case in point. Would Fox News back him if they thought that he was going to be different? Let's see the poll results. What did you guys think? Do you believe that Ron DeSantis will beat Donald Trump? 1,040 votes. 3% of you said yes. 87% said no. And 10% said that you are not sure. Well, I don't know if Ron DeSantis will see this, but you might want to look at this poll. You might want to look at this poll. That does not look good for you. Does not look good. Okay. Thank you so much, Eric. Terry says, de-Satan the boring candidate. He's boring, right? Miguel says he's the slimmer version of Chris Christie. Why you go there, Miguel? Why you do that? Why did you do that? That's messed up. Thank you for the super chat. Cool Blue. A question for Ron DeSantis. Is he politically in tune with where this country and its people are at? And does he sense the direction we need to go in? I don't think he really does. I don't think he really does. That was funny, though, the Chris Christie thing. Okay, guys, that's it for me tonight. Again, happy to be back. I'll be back again on Thursday. I'm off tomorrow. I'm not live on Wednesdays. Don't forget, guys, this Saturday is the Mutual Aid Barbecue here in Boston. So I'll be there with a bunch of other peeps who have been very helpful. Terry, I know, is in the chat, and other people that are part of the RB in Boston chapter. They've already passed out the flyers. So don't forget, guys, if you're in the area, come check us out. And I'll shout that out again on Thursday. But we've done really well. Thank you guys all for your donations. Like on GoFundMe, I did not think we were going to get to that amount, but we've done really, really well. So thank you guys so much. I'll shout it out again with the flyer info on Thursday. I just don't have it on me right now. But other than that, guys, you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.